It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott's here. Mary Jo Foley's here. What about work from home? Microsoft has a new study that says it's not as good as working in the office. Of course, that might just be a little bit self-serving. We'll also talk about Microsoft's change in plans on bringing back people from the office. A new job for President Brad Smith. We'll talk about Windows 11. Do you really need it? What's different between Windows 10 and 11? And Paul and Mary Jo's capsule reviews. That and a whole lot more coming up. Plus, we plan for the new Surface event next week. All the details next on Windows Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley. Episode 742. Recorded Wednesday, September 15th, 2021. Now 99.8% crash-free. Windows Weekly is brought to you by Bandwidth. Bandwidth understands the challenges enterprises face when migrating their communications to the cloud. That's why Bandwidth launched Duet for Microsoft Teams, the only complete solution for direct routing and Microsoft-certified E911, available direct from a carrier and designed to simplify your migration to Teams direct routing. Request your proof of concept at bandwidth.com/WW. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show where we cover all the latest news from Microsoft, and there is quite a bit, actually. Paul Thurrott is here from Thurrott.com, Mary Jo Foley from ZDNet, all about Microsoft.com together. They will analyze, debunk, and I don't know, what else do you do? What else do people do? You'll deconstruct. That's what you'll do.
Nice.
Deconstruct.
Like when you go to a fancy restaurant, you get a little piece of foam, and it's like, oh, this is a steak. Deconstructed.
Deconstructed steak.
It's got a little hint of steak taste in it.
In literary criticism, to deconstruct something is to, deeply analyze it, I guess?
Take it apart.
Take it apart.
Limb by limb.
Yeah. Understand it by understanding the pieces. And that's what we do here. Seems like there was a lot of news this week. Where do you want to start?
All of a sudden.
Where do you want to start?
I know.
Hybrid work. Where Microsoft Microsoft, like everybody else, is saying, don't come back to work now, right?
Yeah.
I know, but they just spent the past year talking about how it's great hybrid work. We got this, blah, blah, blah. And then they did a survey with their employees and like, oh, we got to get back to the office. This is not. Well, this
was a surprise because everybody else is saying, oh, it's good. Workers are happier. They do a better job. Microsoft's study says what? They don't.
Right.
It says that people are relying on what they call asynchronous ways of communicating. So emails, what else? Chat, that kind of stuff. And they want them to be using Teams and video and synchronous methods of communication because they have made the case that this is better for productivity. And they're like, oh, wait. We did a survey of our employees, and they're all in these silos doing all these private emails and private chats and SMS, and that's not what we want. And so it's making them less productive. Like,
that's what people do.
Which came first, the study or the decision to not let people stay home?
Yeah, right.
Right.
well, okay. I mean, I hopefully the decision had more to do with just the.
I know it does. It does. COVID. Right.
But you know how this thing goes.
No, we should bring that up, right? So Microsoft, for the past year, they've been giving dates of this is the earliest return date for our U.S. employees. And the last one we had was early October. And then this week they just blew that up and they said, you know what, we're not going to even try to predict when the new return date is. We'll see. So, yeah. They're not even saying like January or anything. They're just saying we're going to wait and look at the science. And
they've changed it 4 times already, right?
They have.
So I think like April, June, September, October, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. Right.
And there's I guess there are people who don't understand science out in the world or something. But there's here we are. We should have been over it by now, and we're not. So
yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So this was a peer-reviewed study. It wasn't just like, hey, let's send out something on Teams and get everybody's opinion. 61,000 employees. It was from Microsoft Research. They published it in the Journal of Nature and Human Behavior. And, of course, at the same time as they said this, they said, oh, and don't come back. It feels like it's a little self-serving to say you should be using Teams. Okay, can I just say?
I know. No, I know.
Well, this is based on Microsoft employees, right? So, in other words, this is not a survey of other employees. These are Microsoft employees, right? And so what they've discovered is that even within Microsoft, people are just engaging in these not sanctioned, but non new normal communication types, which is what people do. Even in small companies like mine, everyone has probably noticed this. You throw something into a group chat and it devolves into pictures of someone's vacation.
Yeah.
And it's like, but what about that work thing I was trying to get done?
I hate that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I think
I told you, I'm the bad guy who banned animated GIFs in our Slack.
Yeah. No, look, there's a place for that kind of stuff. Don't get me wrong. But sometimes to get something done, you need to go to the individual that will help you get it done and just communicate privately. And of course, now there's like, well, you communicated privately. What are you doing? What about the rest of us? It's like, I just wanted to get it done, not see pictures of your kid.
Purely anecdotally. So this is why it's hard to compete with a 61,000 person survey published in a journal of human behavior, et cetera, et cetera. But purely anecdotally, my experience has been no one wants to come back to the office.
Yes.
They miss the people. And if you had a weekly lunch, that'd be more than adequate. And the rest of the time, they're very happy to be working at home. And I have to say, our experience with our remote workers has been pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, it depends. If people are getting the job done, that's fine. And that's been the bar for people like Mary Jo and I for a long time. Like, no one has to question whether we're working. You can see what we're doing.
Yeah, we have a product that we put out. Now, notice who could very easily do what the rest of our hosts are doing and work from my home office, come in.
Right. Sure.
And so I guess I'm the counterexample to that, but, I haven't.
Well, but the exception that proves the point. I mean, you are alone in the studio for the most part. And so,
I can just close my doors. I get the best of both worlds, right?
Yeah. Well, it also creates a sense of continuity for the company.
Right. But it also depends on what your setup is, right? Like, so we like working at home because we've found a way to make it work in our home office environments, right? There are a lot of people
Mary Jo, if you don't mind, real quick.
Yes.
We work at home because we hate people. But go on.
Well, also that, too. But
there is a higher percentage of misanthropy among Twit hosts than the average population.
I'm sure there is.
Well, there's a reason we ended up in this bucket.
Yes. So we're the wrong people to ask, obviously.
No, but think if you're somebody who has like young children at home who haven't been going to school, your spouse works at home, you work at home, and you live in like 800 square feet in New York or less, you probably are not as excited to be at home, and you're happy to be going back to the office.
But if your husband goes back to the office and your kids go back to school,
then you have it all to yourself.
I think staying home sounds pretty good.
You won. And by the way, that you just defined my career for the first 20 years. It was wonderful.
Yeah. Working from home is fine. It's the problem is people, wherever you are. Mm-hmm. So if you can find a nice, quiet place to get your job done. What does this do for things like WeWork? I mean,
they're having trouble keeping people, right? But in the same breath, Microsoft is setting up these like hot desking situations, so there is a place for people to come in.
That sounds like the worst of both worlds.
Well, actually, come in 2 days a week. WeWork and bringing it to work.
Right. Come in 2 days a week. You have a desk you can use that you can, when you sign in, it has all your stuff. When you leave, all your stuff is gone from the monitor and the computer, right? And that's kind of the best of all worlds, right? You have your group meeting, you come in, you do it, and then you go home and you work the rest of the time at home.
Right.
I think that's good. I wouldn't mind doing that.
I'm going to propose something. I think what's changed is it used to be the internet was better at work. Not anymore. It used to be you had better hardware, computers, technology at work. Not anymore. Right. Mm-hmm. So now you can easily, in a home office, most people who work at home or ever have worked at home have very competent setups. Mm-hmm. So that's solved. What you don't have is the idiot coworker who comes over every 5 minutes to look over your cubicle and say what you're doing. You don't have the meetings, the incessant meetings, which no one likes.
Well, except we do.
No, you have them on Teams.
And they're worse. That's honestly the worst part about working.
Actually,
virtually.
That is, you're right. Meetings follow you everywhere.
You know what we don't have, though, as journalists, and I'm sure there are examples outside of journalism, too. You can't have the same, camaraderie and kind of environment that when you're working with a source, virtually versus in person.
Yeah, that's true.
I was trying to explain to someone, I'm like, drinks over the internet,
No beer.
It's not the same thing. Like,
it's not
right?
even the same.
And of course, we're talking about knowledge workers here. We're not.
Yes,
Obviously,
right.
there are people who have to go to a factory. There's people, our engineers,
a restaurant or a
restaurant,
whatever.
Exactly.
Yep.
But I think the point is that there's an industrial era notion that you work 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, kind of like you had to go to assembly line of information.
That is absolutely, Yep.
And that's antiquated.
Yep.
That's Henry Ford thinking.
The other, you can't unbite the forbidden fruit either. I think that's a big
right.
part of it. These people have been home now for a year. They've made it work. And the thought of getting on that train and spending 40 minutes every day getting to work or whatever your commute is suddenly not just something I do every day. It's something I can't. It's like I can't do this anymore. I think they've. And again, I just want to issue a complaint about that. I've been doing this for 25 years. I want you all to go back to work.
Paul's been biting that forbidden fruit for 20 years.
This is my fruit. Go to work.
We act as if everybody can do this. Obviously, everybody can't do this. But for information workers, for knowledge workers, I think it makes sense to let them work. They have a task to do, right? And if they get it done,
right.
That's what matters.
Exactly.
This must have been a very hard thing for certain types of bosses, though, right? I mean,
managers hate it because all they do is manage. Yeah. They don't create anything.
To make sure people are, exactly.
Yeah. Manage.
That must be difficult.
They're the guys with the whip. Right. They're the overseers. Yeah, overseers don't like it so much because they aren't really needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the Office Space scene. It's like, what exactly do you do here again?
Yeah. Well, I make sure that everybody else is doing their jobs.
Yeah. I mean, is there a reason the developer couldn't just talk to the customer? Oh, no. We can't allow that. You need the guy in the middle. Yeah. Oh, well.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I feel like there are things that you can do at home that you can't do in the office and vice versa. Like the concentrated quiet time. I know there are all these things now, like with Focus Assist and the new feature that's coming on Windows 11 where you can put your headphones on and have music and all. But like if you're working at home and you have the right setup, you can have that all the time, right? You don't need to worry about shared office spaces where there's no walls, no doors, like your colleagues are all around you, like newsrooms. I remember when CNET was like, if you want to have a desk in the newsroom, you can. I'm like, why would I ever want to do that?
Well, and this is another thing that's propelling this is that for some reason this open office nonsense became de rigueur. Look what Apple did. And frankly, a lot of Apple employees said, we want offices. Microsoft has always had offices,
same thing.
right? No,
but then they redesigned the campus to have all these open spaces, and people are like, "Wait, I wanted to have a door, even if I had to share the office with someone." Right?
Yeah. They just move from trend to trend. It's so
because it was just trendy. Yeah.
What were they trying to do? Sell noise canceling headphones? Was that the goal? Because that's what they did. They just have a bunch of people sitting in a room with their headphones on.
So to me, that's dispiriting to look at that row after row of people wearing headphones.
Right.
It's pretty clear what they don't want. They don't want the person sitting next to them. I want a door.
I do too.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's interesting because I thought. See, I'm surprised to hear this because I thought for years Microsoft was famous that they gave people offices.
They were.
Yeah,
they did.
Yeah.
That's
and then
expensive.
they did this whole campus makeover, which they're in the middle of right now,
took out the walls.
Basically are like, hey, everybody else is going with open office space. Let's do that too. Right.
Steve Jobs was so sure that the magic happened as people serendipitously ran into other people, not even from their own department, from other departments. In the design of the new Apple campus originally, he only had one bathroom per floor. And so that you would have to walk all the way down, like it might be 200 yards, all the way down.
He was smart in a lot of ways.
That was not one of them.
Mary Jo may have heard a story my wife tells about when she was in high school. They put fake walls up between the classroom, and the theory was that through osmosis, you would learn something from hearing the other classes.
No,
but all it did was just make people distracted. And of course, then a fight would break out and two kids would come flying through the wall because they weren't even real walls.
It's trendy. You know what? This is all fads.
That was trendy, and that was probably the late 1970s or something. You know,
I remember when it was a big, because when I started going to school back in the turn of the century, we would, you'd sit in rows, right, and everybody facing the teacher, and there'd be 30 kids in the classroom. It'd be a 6x5 classroom. Then all of a sudden, I remember this in sixth grade. And this must have been 1967 or something. They got the idea that, oh no, you should do quads of 4 desks facing each other. It was a nightmare because at every single one of those quads, there was somebody who was,
just flicking
trouble,
elastic bands.
Spitballs,
yeah. Yep.
So it was a dumb idea.
Yep.
But it was a trend. It was a fad.
Well, listen, if you like bell-bottom jeans, those will be coming back soon.
Yeah, they are. No, too late. They're back.
Oh, they're already back.
They're already back. Lisa was telling me the other day, she said, I should have saved my bell-bottoms. Mm-hmm. They're back. Mom jeans are back. That's the one I don't understand.
They are. They're so weird. It's so weird to see that, right?
That.
And I say that as a stepmom. Like, come on. You see 20-somethings wearing them around New York? Really?
Yeah, isn't that weird? Lisa was showing me some influencer. And I said, nice picture, but what's with the pants?
I know.
Right.
She said, no, those are trendy.
This is another reason not to come into the office, because then you don't have to worry about these fashion trends.
Lisa's wearing,
I care.
I hope
but,
she doesn't mind me saying this. She's wearing sweats today.
Nice.
And that's fine. In fact, I found out, I didn't know this term, athleisure. Are you familiar with this?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yes.
Athleisure wear is through the roof because of COVID. Mm-hmm. Not that anybody's working out. Heaven forbid.
No. There's more leisure in that word than ath.
Yeah.
There is. Yeah.
But companies like Vuori and Lululemon are going through the roof. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because people don't have to. They can wear sweatpants. They're nice sweatpants.
Everyone, go back to work. I'm tired of you honing into my lifestyle. I've been wearing the same pair of shorts for 14 years.
Get your teeth off my forbidden fruit, says Paul Thurrott. Yep.
You know what's so weird to me? So Microsoft said, part of what they're also saying in all these studies is, but there is a reason to come back to the office because people sometimes need to brainstorm and they are more innovative when they're in a same room together. But think about what they're doing with Teams. They're turning the Teams experience into something where it basically feels like you're in the room with people. Like you can have all the way you position your cameras and do all these things.
Does it feel like that really?
It's not.
I feel like it feels like it enough to simulate that.
I think it's the worst of both worlds.
No, you know what I don't want to do? I don't want to be having to feel like, what, the worst thing for me in the office was the constant interruptions and people just being like, hey, there's a birthday party for so-and-so down here, blah, blah, blah. I like birthday parties. I'm not a hater on birthday parties. I even make cakes for people in my office, okay? Like, I like birthday parties.
You have to defend this.
No, because I know Micah's going to be on Mary Jo. She hates consumers and hates birthdays. But I just hated the constant interruption. Like even if you had a door or you had an office, right? People would come by and like, hey, what's new? Hey, how about blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, the interruptions are killing me, right?
I used to, I'd be on a plane.
That's what I don't want.
Typing on a laptop with headphones on and people would try to talk to me.
Right?
People next to me on a plane.
Yeah.
And I would go through this little comedy routine where I would laboriously
you do it really slowly.
Take out the thing, close the laptop, and be like, I'm sorry, what? And then they're like, nice weather we're having, huh? I'm like, yeah.
First thing I do, I get on an airplane and I suit up so that make it very clear.
The sign.
Yeah, you might as well just have a sign.
What's
or you just go.
I do anything I wanted to talk to anybody.
If you just keep going, then they don't.
It's probably not COVID, but I'm still waiting on the results.
That worked even pre-COVID. I bet it works really well now. Oh, well, we're the wrong people to ask, I guess.
We are. I know. I feel like there are people like Donna Sarkar, and I know other people like her who are like, I cannot wait to get back out there and do meetings and conferences and meet with people informally in small groups. And I'm like, I kind of miss going to events sometimes.
You and I had the right work schedule, right? Which was
we did.
A little bit of
doing
this.
now.
A little bit
but
of
every
that.
once in a while, go to some city, meet up with all the people you see 2 to 5 times a year. It's a little family reunion. It's fun. Or you have a work meeting you have to go to every once in a while in person. in my case, maybe stay overnight one night in New York or something. And that was perfect. It was perfect.
Agree.
I think that's the problem is you have to understand and be flexible. And the problem is a lot of these managers are like Donna Sakar. They're outgoing. They're people. That's why they're managers. And so I think they're not. And this is, by the way, there's a petition circling at Apple because they're saying you're not listening to us. We don't want to come back. We don't. And I think it's especially coders. But I think, there are groups of people who are not that gregarious. And I think you have to be flexible and understanding. And we don't need – the good news is we don't need the industrial model anymore. We can we can try other things. I think that's great. I also have to say that Microsoft's study is contrary to also a lot of other studies. We were talking last week about something called Zoom dysmorphia, which is a psychological problem caused by staring at a picture of yourself all the time.
Oh, my God, it's the worst. Well, see, that's something I'm just used to. I because we do these podcasts.
Yeah, we're used to it because it's our business.
I but people, they'll say something to me like, oh, remember that time? And I'm like, you know what? I kind of block the show out after it's done. Like, I don't really, I don't ever go back and look at it later. And then if I ever have to, for some reason, it's always like, oh, boy.
Yeah. No, you get used to it, but people who have not been in broadcasting are a little bit disturbed, I think, by having to stare at themselves, and there seems to be an actual psychological disruption that happens because of that. If you Google Zoom dysmorphia, you'll see this.
Yeah, it's not like I may have taken down all the mirrors in my house, but that doesn't mean I'm weird. I just
means you're a vampire. Yeah. Okay, I understand. So let's talk about Teams. This is Microsoft's platform for this, right? This is how they plan to solve all this, right? What's new?
Right. So as part of this whole big work event, talking about hybrid work trends, they did talk about a number of new features coming to Teams, and a lot of them are focused on their long quest to try to make meetings better, right? So they've got some new AI-enabled cameras that can do things like speaker tracking, handle multiple video streams, recognize people, so that when somebody comes in, it automatically tells you who it is. They can zoom in on people so that it doesn't feel like everybody's just these little, discombobulated heads on some weird together mode kind of thing. Like they can actually, when somebody's speaking, identify them, bring them to the front and such, put their name on them like we do here on Twit, little lower third on that. So yeah, they're adding those kind of features. There's a new PowerPoint feature called Cameo that's coming that'll integrate your Teams feed right into a PowerPoint presentation. So if you're giving a presentation, you can decide where you appear on the slide so that people can see you talking while you're going through a presentation. That's early next year that's coming. And then some things in email too, like this Outlook RSVP feature, so that if you RSVP to a meeting, you could say, I'm coming in person or I'm coming remotely. That's kind of handy because sometimes somebody tells you they're coming to a meeting and you're like, oh, do they think we're doing this in person or are we doing it remotely?
That's another weird one. It's like, oh, are we going to be on video? Because I didn't put a shirt on or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. So yeah, a lot of those kind of features. Companion mode in Teams Mobile is going to let you use Teams Mobile to have like access to chats, live reactions, access the whiteboard from your device. Those kind of incremental but nice to have features are all coming between the end of this year and early next year. And then the other thing they talked about on the LinkedIn side of the house is they're making available for free 36 LinkedIn learning courses until October 9th. And if you're curious what those are, you can go and look at just look for LinkedIn learning courses free till October 9th, and you'll find a list. There's some for people at work. There's some for HR professionals. There's some for managers, just how to deal with the whole hybrid landscape and what you can do, like say to find a job during this time when a lot of things are happening hybrid wise. So yeah, that was another nice to have kind of thing. None of these things to me were earth shattering or like huge groundbreaking announcements, but more of a continuation of how Microsoft is evolving Teams and email to try to be more friendly to people working in a hybrid environment.
Right.
just
The blog posts were very long, but that's kind of the short.
You're working at home. You got
version.
time to read a long blog post.
I know. I was like, wow, this is a long blog post for something I'm going to write in like 4 paragraphs.
I have one more thing to add to this discussion about working from home versus working in the office. When everybody else is working from home and you're working in the office, there are some advantages. Listeners sent us 16 Stan's Donuts from Stan's Donuts in Chicago.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant 3 Stan's Donuts.
Yesterday, there were 16, but there are still some left. Had anybody else been in this building, I would not have a Stan's Donut right now. So thank you to that listener. And
nice.
These are apple cider donuts, which I believe you New Englanders are familiar with.
Very nice.
They just came back to Dunkin' Donuts.
It's time once again. You think pumpkin spice latte is the flavor of the season? Oh no! Oh no!
No, actually, there's something special about apple cider donuts.
They're good. I don't know how my New England youth. I missed them.
You never had them?
Maybe they're a new invention.
No.
If you go to farmers markets, markets, you always see them, right?
Yeah. We always get them when we go up to Stowe, Vermont. They have a nice...
So good.
Apple picking.
They're so good.
Exactly.
So I'm just glad there's nobody in the office. More for me. Microsoft has bought a company called Take Lessons.
Yes.
That sounds like there's a corporal punishment involved.
Take Lessons is a platform that connects tutors of all kinds to students. So if you're looking like for music lessons or cooking lessons or any kind of lessons, you can use Take Lessons to find instructors and book them. And the instructors can use it to create their platform for attracting students. Okay, the weirdest thing about this announcement was Microsoft didn't announce they bought Take Lessons. Take Lessons announced that Microsoft bought them.
Yeah, good news.
Yeah, I know. It was very funny because TechCrunch somehow found out. I guess they told TechCrunch, and Take Lessons posted a whole Q&A about Microsoft taking them over. And then I called Microsoft. I'm like, hey, did you buy a company called Take Lessons? And they're like, we got to get back to you on that. I'm like, well, they're posting that you bought them. Okay. Yeah, we bought them. Okay.
Wow. So they weren't intentionally trying to keep it a secret.
No, I think they were trying to save it up for probably a part of a bigger announcement or something.
Yeah, oops.
I was like, whoops, sorry, guys.
I think here's our first lesson. When a bigger company buys a little one, you just let the big company should decide when to announce it. Yep.
Indeed.
That's a good point.
But, this fits in well with what Microsoft's doing around education space with Microsoft 365 and Teams, right? It's the whole thing to try to make it easier for individuals in the education space to connect, and it fits in with the productivity theme and this tool suite that they're building out there. So it made sense. It wasn't such a crazy announcement. I mean, if Microsoft bought some company and it made absolutely no sense with the rest of their portfolio and the company announced it, you'd be like, is this like an April Fool's thing belatedly or what? But Take Lessons fits in with what they're doing all around the whole Microsoft 365 academic platform.
Does it use Teams or?
They are a Microsoft partner.
Okay, so it probably does.
They have, they've been working with them in the past.
It has SharePoint. It uses SharePoint.
I believe so. Microsoft also has this freelance toolkit thing.
This
I was
is something
wondering
else I was looking at.
I thought that might fit in with this, but it doesn't seem like they're making that as a direct connection. It's more about hybrid opportunities and how you connect people.
Sure.
The whole collaboration space, that kind of thing. We don't know what's going to happen in terms of how Microsoft's going to fold it in. Will they make it free? Will they make it a paid add-on? We don't know any of that. And neither does Take Lessons. They just said, we think our company name is going to remain Take Lessons, although we might add Powered by Microsoft to our name. I'm like, they're going to tell you what they want you to do here. You're not going to have a choice. But
it's cute that you have ideas about that.
Yeah. I know. I'm like, you'll learn how this works when Microsoft takes you over, guys.
Right.
Yeah.
As much as Microsoft's lobbying to get people back in the office, it sounds like, well, maybe they're not lobbying to get people back in the office.
Speaking of lobbying,
when are people coming back to the office?
Never, Leo.
Never. Yeah.
No, we just don't know now.
Yeah, we don't know.
They're smart now. You know, I always kind of had some misgivings when they said, well, in April. It's like, what? See what happens. Well, actually, November.
The tech companies are so optimistic by definition, right? And
I know.
That's been finally beaten out of them, apparently. So
they're doing the right thing now, which is saying as soon as it's safe, and we'll let you know.
I think
there are already people there going back to work. You know, like I've seen people at Microsoft going to the office. It's not like you're forbidden from going to the office.
And it depends on the place. Some places will have higher incidences of COVID or whatever, and places that don't may see more people going back to the office first.
Mm-hmm.
So
we're kind of. I mean, we said, everybody back to the office. Then we, with Delta, we kind of said, okay, never mind. If you want to come in, and I noticed there are people here eating my donut. I mean, just working, but a lot of people opted not to come to the office, and I think we're just giving them the choice at this point. If they can, they can stay home. We were already thinking about. I think this is probably pretty typical of a lot of businesses. We were thinking about a 4-day work week, maybe giving people a chance to work 1 or 2 days at home, and I mean, we want to accommodate what people are asking for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Lisa likes people here because she can yell at them.
No, even when you can go back to work, I think a lot of what people expect and want is going to change, right? It's going to be permanently changed by the pandemic. So when you can go back, I don't think it's going to be like, okay, we're just going to start doing everything that we did before the pandemic and everybody's going to work the same way and work the same hours, right? That doesn't make sense anymore.
That's true, but I think the most important thing for everyone who normally goes to an office to remember is go back to work. Just go. Tired of you being home. You're sucking up all my life force. Go back to work.
No, you know what, Paul? Everyone else is home now, so maybe you should go to the office.
Maybe I should go. I just
rent an office and start working.
When was the last time I went to an office regularly? Seriously, I was in my 20s. I don't even.
Are you kidding?
What that's no. I mean, I'm not kidding. And I went to Israel in the year 2000. I will never forget this for a lot of reasons, obviously. But we went into the office the first day. It was kind of a like a consulting kind of a thing, I'll call it. Mm-hmm. And then the second morning, I was up in my hotel room and getting ready, and the woman called and she said, "Where are you?" And I said, "What do you mean? I'm up in my room." She goes, "We're going to the office." I said, "I just went in there yesterday." I don't go into the office every day.
That was enough. That was good. Once was good.
Thing? I was kidding. I mean,
I love it. So they're just basically saying, what? I mean, they're letting people come back if they want.
You can if you want to or need to, or if your manager said, "We need you." Like the people who are working in the Azure data centers, they have to go in. Obviously.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what this is? This is the big difference. The big change here, I think, is going from this hard start, we'll call it, to just a fuzzier thing where it's just going to depend. There'll be different places where all of a sudden there are a lot of people back, and some places where there are almost no people back, and it will just depend. And you know what, Mary, before I interrupted her with a joke, she's right. I mean, it's going to be different than it was before, and in some places there'll be more, in some places there'll be less. It's okay. But seriously, go back to work.
I'm one.
Yeah.
This is a perfect time for me to ask you guys something that one of our listeners has been asking me for a couple weeks. He said, so Microsoft's going to have Ignite in November this year, and it's all virtual again. There's no in-person component to it. But he said, you know what I would love us to do is somehow do a Windows Weekly meetup virtually as part of Ignite. And I'm like, you know what? We haven't done that. We haven't done it. But it's not a bad idea. You know, we haven't done like a big kind of meetup type thing online. I don't know how.
And we can use Teams. I don't mind. We'll use Teams. It'll be fun.
I would do an in-person meetup if that made sense. You know, at this point.
No, we're not meeting with you. Okay. We're not meeting with you, man. No.
That hurts. That hurts. I was gonna have it in New York too, but forget it.
No, no. But this way everybody can go. I mean, it's not as fun, you know. But
I know, right?
Yeah, the last meetup we did was in March of 2020. Lisa and I went to St. Louis.
I was there.
Joe was there, and a bunch of people were, and it was fun. But that was the last one. That was it.
I know. They even brought in special local beers for us to try.
Oh, remember that? Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
That was fun.
That was really cool. Yeah, they must because of you. They had different tables with each of the local breweries set up, and they had tasters, and you could go around. That
I'm
was
not saying
so
I
much
tried
fun.
them all, but I
Quads where
did.
you were facing each other.
There weren't that many.
There were enough.
I tried them all. No, you think Teams would be a good platform to do that with?
Maybe.
No.
Well, they have that
No, just
arena
do Zoom.
seating.
Together mode.
Yeah.
Together mode thing. Yeah.
Then you could be on stage, give a presentation. No, how would you do it?
What, like a PowerPoint?
Yeah,
Big
now you're
chat
turning
room?
it into work.
Well, let's we can talk offline about that. But I would
Yeah.
totally.
I
love
thought
to
it
do
was
that.
it was a fun idea because I'm like, you know what, we do work things this way all the time, but we
Yeah.
haven't done anything quote fun.
Let's do that.
To do that.
Yeah, we've had great experiences in the Discord doing just kind of ad hoc stuff like that. It's really, really, really fun. It's kind of what our Linux show ended up being, is just kind of a get together and a chat.
Right.
I love that idea.
That guy, by the way, he's lurking in Windows Weekly a lot. Who's the host?
Jonathan Schwartz.
No, the other guy.
There's another guy. Oh yeah, he always is
Rob.
saying, Rob Campbell's always saying, come on over.
Yeah.
Linux. It's nice. It's
It's
warm.
like Linux, guys.
Yeah.
Linux.
No, Rob.
Not cool, man. Not cool.
He wanted Paul as his co-host at one point. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Well, he was one of the
really-
guys pushing that show.
I would have nothing to add to that, unfortunately.
Yeah, all right. We'll do a meetup. I like that. I really like that idea. We'll work on a time and day and so forth.
Yeah.
Right around
Yes,
Ignite
good
time,
idea.
you think? When is that?
Yeah, so November 2nd to 4th is
12-ish?
Ignite.
Oh, no.
Okay.
So the 3rd is a Wednesday, which is Windows Weekly.
I think I'm in Mexico that day, unfortunately.
Oh.
I don't get
Right.
back to the November 4th. There's another one with who knows if I will actually be able to get into Mexico.
I don't think you're
Now.
going to have problems with Mexico.
You know what's funny is I think we're going to have Hong Kong has just closed itself, and I don't think
Oh,
we're
wow.
going to be able to go on our cruise in January. That's going to be
Oh, man.
another cancellation.
Right.
It's really, I think we all thought, well, we'll all get the vaccine, and then they'll, be like the flu. There'll still be a risk of getting it, but it won't kill you.
And by the way, that is true if you're vaccinated, for the most
Yeah,
part.
I guess the pandemic is mostly among people who haven't been able to get the vaccine or haven't chosen to. But at the same time, those of us who are vaccinated are still kind of now going, well, maybe I don't.
Sure.
Is that foolish? Are we being foolishly careful, or is that sensible? I just don't know.
No, it's sensible, but I wouldn't worry about Mexico, frankly.
No, you went. You were just there, and you had a great
I
time.
was just there twice. It was great.
Yeah. And it's Mike Elgin. He's going to take good care. Mike and Amira take good care of us, I'm sure. We're staying in a private residence, so
Yeah.
Nice.
I think it'll be fine. I have to convince Lisa, though. She's a little
Worried?
understandably, skittish.
Yeah.
I think we're going to mostly vacation inside the U.S. for the next 10, 15 years.
Jeez. Well, it's okay.
No, actually, we want to go up to
actually-
Seattle and visit Brad Smith, who is now vice chairman. Is that purely honorary? What does that mean?
Yes.
And who is Brad Smith when he's at home?
Brad Smith is the president and general counsel of Microsoft, the head lawyer at Microsoft.
Right.
He's also the guy who these days does a lot of announcements around public good and government issues and that kind of stuff.
Public policy. Yeah.
Public policy, right. So his new title is also vice chairperson or vice chairman of the Microsoft board. It doesn't sound like that means anything. Sorry, Brad Smith. But it's more of an honorary title, I think.
Well, yeah, because if you're is there only one president? Or
No.
is Microsoft one of those companies that has a dozen
There's more than one
presidents?
president.
Oh, okay.
There's more.
Yeah.
That's so confusing.
I know.
For people outside of Microsoft, other than famous people like Bill Gates, he's like the one guy you might have heard of, right? If you don't follow the company closely. Like, obviously, if you follow the financials, you've heard of Amy Hood or whatever. And most people probably have heard of Satya Nadella, the CEO. But he has been really public facing, and he came to prominence because he was the guy. And at the time, I think he was probably like a senior vice president or something. He went to Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer and said, stop being so belligerent with the regulators. You got to get on their side. And they agreed. And he became general counsel right after that happened. But he was the guy who kind of stepped through the EU antitrust stuff and try to make less of a mess of that.
Well, he even was there for the DOJ thing, right? I mean, he's been there since '93.
Well, not as general counsel.
Okay.
He became general counsel right after that concluded, right after Microsoft settled or whatever.
Yeah.
He's a long timer.
Oh yeah.
He
might be the longest time employee of the company right now.
No.
This isn't a succession planning thing because he's 61. He's too old. No? He's too old to be taking over from. He's older than Satya Nadella, so he's not going to be like the next CEO.
No.
There was a time where I thought maybe he was angling for that, but like Mary Jo said, I don't know if it was before the show or at the beginning of the show, I feel like his future is going to be politics.
I totally feel like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
National?
Maybe Washington State, that kind of thing.
Yeah, at least Washington State, for sure.
I just saw a figure, $200 million. Was that his stock grant? Yes. He's got a lot of money.
He's a rich guy.
Yeah, more than rich. He's like,
look at the picture I used on the article. That's the smile of a man who's
got money, maybe.
He's going to be okay in retirement. He's not worried about when Social Security kicks in. He's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is you're right. That's a happy guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Winning.
He's also very nice. I've interviewed him.
He looks
and
nice.
He is a really good guy. He's a good guy. Yeah.
And he's kind of on the right side of history in the sense that, he tries to get Microsoft to be a good corporate and global citizen and all that kind of stuff. He's involved in all that kind of stuff. So
So good. We're happy for him.
Yeah. He's the vice chair. They've never had a vice chair before, but now they have one. There you go.
So both Ballmer and Gates were on the board, but they're gone. Satya Nadella's CEO is a chairman, and now Brad Smith is the vice chairman. And are the rest of the people on the board non-Microsoft employees? I think they are, right?
Yeah.
They're all outside directors.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's good, I guess. I mean, did he get a raise?
Kind of ridden the Nadella train. Yeah, I'm sure he did. They didn't really discuss that. Literally, there was one sentence of explanation.
I know. Yeah, there was.
Yeah. Well, we're happy for him, I guess. I don't know what to say.
Congratulations, Brad.
Right.
Good job. Your smile is well worth it.
Your winning
It
smile.
says it all. He also wrote a book,
He did.
Tools and
Weapons. Is that the name of it?
Yeah.
Tools and Weapons.
The Promise and Peril of the Digital Age. Sounds deep.
Yeah.
Anybody read it?
No.
Actually, I did read it. I read part. In fact, I think I think, Mary Jo, you might remember, I said, there's a part of this you might want to read. And you were like, yeah, I don't think so.
No, I don't want.
Yeah, I just
I think it
was
was
like,
Brad
I
Smith.
don't know.
Yeah.
Having
It's better
don't
than
like
Satya
business
Nadella's
books.
book.
Having written a business book, you no longer have to read them. Is that
Exactly.
the deal? You're off the hook.
Exactly. No, people are like, do you read business books? I'm like, oh, no, never. And they're like, you wrote one, though. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't mean I like them. Doesn't mean I would suggest
That's
reading
like saying,
them.
I'm on a tech podcast. Do you think I subscribe to 13 test podcasts?
That's a good point. I don't listen to any podcasts. You're right.
You think that's what I do?
Call Her Daddy, which is the greatest podcast ever.
Wow.
Wednesday, I look forward to Wednesdays. I know Wednesday there's going to be a new drop, as the kids call it.
I thought you meant because of Windows Weekly. No, you mean something else.
Wednesday is also the day I do this great little show you might have heard of called Windows Weekly. Man, is it good.
Is it Prince Spaghetti Day or was that Thursday?
It's also,
Prince Spaghetti
Anthony
Day.
Wednesday. I think it's Thursday. It's Prince Spaghetti Day.
It might be Thursday. Yeah.
Was
Chat room?
It was Wednesday.
What day?
Wednesday?
We're not, chat room.
And by the way, if you didn't grow up in the Northeast United States, you have no idea what we're talking
Then you don't have no idea what we're talking about right now.
Really? They don't have. They didn't have Prince Spaghetti
I don't know.
Day
I thought
and,
it was local.
the rest
thing.
of the country.
No? Oh, maybe they did.
Oh, now you make me want to watch a Prince Spaghetti Day ad.
Wednesday, guys.
Wednesday is Prince Spaghetti
Prince
Day.
Spaghetti Day.
All right, everybody, have some
And
spaghetti.
Prince Pasta, still made locally in Lowell, Massachusetts.
Oh, it is a New England thing.
Wow, that might literally be the only thing made in Lowell, Massachusetts now.
You know, when I
Wang.
think spaghetti, I think Lowell, Massachusetts.
Sure you don't.
I think of Wang.
And Wang. And Wang.
Oh, boy.
Let's take a little break. When we come back, there's still much more to talk about, Paul and Mary Jo, and a surprise beer pick of the week. Is it a surprise because you're holding back or a surprise because you don't know yet?
It's a surprise because I always have so many I want to make the beer pick.
Nice. She can't decide.
I'm like, which one?
So good. Our show today brought to you by Bandwidth. You might say, well, of course, Leo, how else would I be listening? Not that Bandwidth, capital B, Bandwidth. You know, it's funny. I've talked to these guys. I love them, and they're really great, and they've been around forever. They really are, I think, the original kind of cloud-based telecom company. That's why they're called Bandwidth, you know, because I mean they got it in the old days. But I often say, you know, it's a little generic. Could you? So I'm going to explain what Bandwidth is, and this is really for people who are using Microsoft Teams, and perhaps would like to add a calling plan. Now, you might just say, well, it's easy. We'll just do the Microsoft calling plan. No. Bandwidth has a product just for Teams. It's called Duet. You'll save 40% compared to Microsoft calling plans, but you get more for less. Bandwidth does so many important things. For instance, for the safety and health and regulatory requirements of your employees in your company, you need to have accurate 911 caller information when you're using Teams, right? If you're going to use Teams as your telephony, Bandwidth helps you maintain compliance with those complicated E911 regulations during and after the migration. Moving to Microsoft Teams, could be complicated. This is a big transition, but Bandwidth's Duet for Microsoft Teams will help you simplify your move. Software-driven SIP, dynamic E911 capabilities, industry-leading expertise, and a company that really cares about you and getting the job done right. They have that, they have that classic old-school telecom mentality, but they have the brand-new technology. Solve the E911 challenge for modern enterprises. You probably heard about Ray Baum's Act, which requires an enterprise to provide a dispatchable location on the 911, and not just street address, but things like building, floor, room number, so that emergency services can get right to you. The problem is employees are using soft phones. They're moving, as we're just talking about this, not only between campuses, buildings, but they're going home. They're remote offices. That means it's really hard to provide accurate location information to public safety. That's where Duet for Microsoft Teams shines. It leverages its advanced dynamic E911 for Teams solution to identify the location of a Teams-connected user exactly at the time of the emergency call, exactly where they are. They natively route the 911 calls across their secure, highly reliable nationwide network. They've got the best, and they provide the caller's current location to mitigate compliance concerns and, most importantly, of course, to enhance employee safety. Your migration will go so much smoother with Bandwidth's Duet. If you're considering direct routing, you'll get greater control and value. You can decouple your telephony from Teams, which is probably a good idea. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. You get the advantage of working directly with a cloud-native carrier from day one, cloud-native. And that includes things like failover control, call forwarding, real-time reroutes. And it all happens inside Microsoft Teams. It's very easy for you and your employees. When you set up the E911, for instance, they have features like a 933 number for testing. You can verify that your location information meets compliance standards, but you don't have to make actual 911 calls. I can't believe when I was talking with them about this, a lot of people do. Companies do this. Excuse me, 911, I'm just testing. Can you see where I am? That's a terrible idea. 933 is so much better. And you're going to have a partner working with you on the migration, not just a provider. They will assign a dedicated onboarding specialist to help you execute your project plan. The NOC is 24/7. There's expert support teams. You'll really like interacting with them. They're going to really accelerate your migration, and they'll hang with you every step of the way. They won't stop till the job is done and done right. You can do things like group your users into logical cohorts, whether it's location or department. You can roll back seamlessly if you ever need to. Bandwidth has the best support ever. In fact, a 9.8 customer satisfaction rating for Bandwidth's white glove customer support. And if you're, wondering, well, what is this Bandwidth? Who would use them? Well, how about RingCentral? We use Bandwidth because we use RingCentral. Zoom, yeah, they use Bandwidth. Genesys, They all use Bandwidth. And if you're more than just a Teams shop, don't worry. Bandwidth is not just for Teams. They can help simplify your telecom migration to the cloud with a bring-your-own-carrier solution for RingCentral, too, in addition to Microsoft Teams. That's how we use them. Check out Bandwidth's Duet for Teams and Duet for RingCentral to see how you can orchestrate your move to the cloud with flexibility and control. All you need to know, including a proof of concept at bandwidth.com/WW. Bandwidth.com/WW. We thank them so much for supporting Windows Weekly, and we thank you for supporting the show by using that address so they know you heard it here. Bandwidth.com/WW. This is an all Teams show today. Didn't plan it that way, but lots of Teams talk. Let's switch gears a little bit, talk about Windows 11. The magic window has shut. Is that right? Oh, Paul, let me turn your mic on. Then you can say it. Yes.
I was going to say, I don't want to go off on a rant here, but no, I'm not going to go off
Please do.
But yeah, one of the things that just happened.
Get ready. Hold on. Get ready for a Thurrott rant or a Thurrant.
No. I'm going to communicate this non-explosively.
Are you? Okay.
Yeah. Look, here, fundamentally, there are two things kind of clashing here. One is that it is fair to say, if you're involved in the Windows Insider program, meaning that you're testing future versions of Windows 10 or barely, or Windows 11 now, you need to understand the risks. And one of those risks is you may find yourself on a one-way dead-end road and you can't get out, and you have to nuke the thing from space. And you should be technical enough to be able to handle that. That's fair. However, Microsoft is also a terrible communicator, and especially in the Windows Insider group. And one of the things that happened recently that I certainly did not understand the full import of myself, and Microsoft did not communicate explicitly, is a few weeks ago they started saying, hey, soon the dev and the beta channels are going to split, and the dev channels may become less stable. So if you don't like that kind of thing, you should move over to beta. And Mary Jo, as we now know, it did that. We talked about it at the time, and she switched over to beta. But attached to that and left unsaid, we didn't discover until it happened, were two things. One, that Dev Channel was moving forward to the post-RTM version of Windows 11, right? Not the experience that users are going to see on October 5, but rather some future updates to Windows 11 or a future version of Windows 11. And more important, and this was the part Microsoft never said, they erased the ability to go back and forth between the dev and the beta channels, which was a unique feature of Windows 11 testing since the beta channel became a thing back in probably early July, whenever that was. So this has bitten some people on the butt, including me, actually. I'm not on my regular machines per se, but because I'm testing on so many different machines, what happens is a couple weeks go by, and you've kind of understood that this was the case. You're like, oh, man, I should probably go over to that laptop I have one open in 2 weeks and switch it over to the beta channel so I don't have to move forward to dev and not be able to switch out of there again. And the problem is you can't, for the most part. I will say of the several machines I've tried this on, I was only successful in one to get it back to beta and not have to install the new build. And the reason is this. When you open up settings and you navigate to Windows Update, it starts downloading updates. Right, because you're in the Insider program. You don't have to click check for updates. It just starts. And once it starts, you can't stop it. You can't go to an update and say, don't install that one. Don't do it. Hold on. Don't do that. Let me go over to the Windows Insider settings, switch over to beta. Now you can check for updates. You can't. And so in my case, I was only able to prevent that from happening on one computer for some reason. I'm not even 100% sure why it worked. But so we've seen some people on Twitter who like, hey, what's going on here? You never said anything. And, of course, now that that's happened, I sort of realized this is that magic window thing I used to talk about, right? Before there was any new version of Windows 10 coming out, Microsoft used to say, hey, just so you know, pretty soon the dev channel is going to switch over to the next version of Windows. This time they didn't say that. They just said it's going to become less stable. They never said it was the next version. So I wasn't thinking myself in terms of magic window. But the issue now is if you were in the dev channel and you never switched to beta before whatever build came out, I guess it was probably 2 weeks ago now, you're in the dev channel, baby. You're done. There's no way out. The only way you can get that thing off your computer is to nuke it by doing a fresh install off an ISO.
That's ugly.
It's ugly, but again.
Go
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, I was going to say, what's crazy is I assumed this was going to happen, but you're right. They didn't make it really explicit.
They actually didn't say it.
And you know what? They should have, because I feel like there's a lot of people like me who are new to the Insider program who joined because you knew you could test in the dev channel the thing that would be Windows 11. That's what got me to do it.
Even when you and I talked about it privately,
did you get burned, Mary Jo? Are you stuck?
No, she didn't.
No.
She did the right thing because Mary Jo is
because when I saw they said it's going to get less stable, I thought, I bet what's going to happen is this magic window thing's going to happen.
We talked about it last week.
So I got to get out.
Here's what I heard, and I think you were right, by the way. But I mean, but what I heard when I read that was things are going to get less stable because there are going to be more builds, and the beta channel is only going to get every third or fourth build now because that makes sense. It's on a slower thing, but it never. I don't know why it didn't occur to me. We were pretty late in the game, and obviously at some point they have to move on to the next version. But this was kind of the first time where they didn't say it explicitly. And some people got burned. So it's not a huge deal. I mean, I like I said, you should be technical enough if you're in the dev channel to be able to figure out how to install Windows 10 or whatever version you want and go to that. And I am, and I'm, it's fine. This is just another case of bad communication. But I think the more important thing here, and other people have pointed this out as well as something I've said too, it's just common sense. There should be UI in the system that says this is happening. Before you install a thing that puts you down a one-way dead-end road, it should pop up and say, hey, by the way, just so you know, if you install this build, you can't get back. Is that okay? It is? Okay, here we go. And that UI doesn't exist. And that is on Microsoft. That's just...
It should just be in Windows Update, right? Like when you see Windows Update as an insider, and it should be like this warning thing, I feel like.
Exactly. And every once in a while, if you haven't gone there, you should get a little notification. Hey, you need to look at this. We're about to do something. Or you just want to make sure this is what you want. So that's something. And by the way, I know people can complain about anything. Before anyone complains about my suggestion there, that's a UI that should be in there for any feature update. It's something that consumers or individuals should see. Hey, by the way, there's a major new version of Windows coming. Do you want to install it? You don't? Okay, we'll just hide it from you. Don't worry about it because the version you're using is going to be supported for another 18 months or 4 years or whatever it is, depending on which version you're running. That UI does not exist. And again, I think this is part of a culture where Microsoft has been and did during Windows 10 certainly sort of force upgrades on people, and in some cases in very suspicious kind of controversial ways. I think it came out of that. There was anyone looking at this system logically should say, there should be a stop or something where the user can say, no. And that doesn't exist. So it's not just about insiders. I don't, yes, we should be technical. Yes, we shouldn't use it on production. Whatever. We get it. Everyone understands that stuff. It's just, it's unfortunate because I would have communicated this whenever that's happened 2 weeks ago. So I would have said, hey guys, because I've done this in the years past. If you can look up Magic Window on my website. There's an article for the past 3, 4, 5, whatever versions of Windows. I talk about this every version, and I didn't this time because they didn't say anything about that happening. They just said it may get less stable. That's how they described it. May get less stable, not will get less stable, not we are testing the next version of Windows 11 may get less stable. They just didn't say anything.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to have Mary Jo's skill at reading the tea leaves to know that it's time to get out. Like that's a slight tremor. And Mary Jo, good on you that you said, I'm getting out of here. This building's about to go.
But she's like, Puxatawny Pete over there. She's like, I don't think, the next 6 weeks are going to look good.
Paul even was like, somebody said, I need a T-shirt that said, what would Mary Jo Foley do? WWMJFD.
WWMJD.
Just remember, just think like me. Be cautious. Be measured.
I say that about many things in life,
Still, it's amazing that you understood that may get less stable really meant the window's about to close. Get out.
I just figured they were going to have to start testing the next version of Windows 11 at some point. Right?
That makes sense.
And by the way,
that's
fair
what
enough.
The trigger was.
But the problem is the Windows Insider program has changed so much over the past year, 2 years. It's always different. So You know, every all of a sudden, like Windows 11 came. All right, now we're going to do it in the dev, and now we're going to do it dev and beta, and now dev and beta are going to get the same builds, but now they're not going to get the same builds, and then dev might get less stable. It's like this. Okay, great, and then it's like, oh, you just cut off my ability to go back. It's like, yeah, but remember, 18 months ago, this was the system, but you changed the system since then.
Well,
right.
It's just not good communication.
We just have to, and we do, but we have to really hammer home that if you're on the Insider program, don't do it on your main machine, and all bets are off.
I would say it like this: if you're listening to the show, you're technical enough to handle this. It's fine. If you want to do this on your production machine, of course, Microsoft legally has to say, please don't do this. But if I'm using it right now. I'm on Dev Channel on this box. I mean, I'm technical enough. If this thing freaked out and died right in the middle of the show, I could be back up and running in 5 minutes on a Windows 10.
But that's the only people who should be doing it. People who can say that.
Right.
And if you're not like me, go to the beta channel or the release preview channel.
Yeah. So anyway, that's all that is. I don't want to make a big deal out of it. I'm shocked at how many people defended Microsoft for some reason, even though they can't point to that place where they actually just said what I said they didn't say. I'm not looking for apologies, except that I am. So here's your chance. But my whole point is not. It's not to complain. It's just this is something like so many things that should have been communicated better. And unfortunately, in this case, it's actually kind of a serious thing. This should have been up front and center in every communication they made. Not things may get less stable, but. Right. We're going to take away the ability to switch from dev to beta. So if you find that less stable thing is not to your liking, you're going to be stuck. So you might want to rethink it. They didn't do that.
Right. What was good, though, today on Twitter, Brandon LeBlanc, who writes a lot of these posts for the Insider program, he said, all right, I agree. We need to make this clearer. And he asked Patrick Moorhead, who was talking about this on Twitter, he said, could you please submit a feedback hub item? Because we really do need to make that clear.
Yeah, right.
Good. Okay.
Please shoot a space capsule into a black hole that no one's ever going to see again.
Now, I like that they are watching when we have problems understanding their ambiguity. Like last week, I had an issue. I don't know if you saw this on Twitter, Paul, but when last week's beta channel bill came out, remember I said to you, I'm like, did they fix that thing where the ad was making something stuck, or didn't they fix it? And you said, I'm not sure. So I looked at the blog post and they didn't say it. No, the blog post didn't say anything. And the blog post said there was still a problem with Start and something else. So I assumed that minute they didn't fix it. So I tweeted, they didn't fix that thing, but there's a new build out. And then Brandon tweeted back to me and he said, no, we fixed that thing. And I said, so you never said that you fixed it. Anywhere. And somebody, I feel like that could have been a little clearer too. So I'm happy to see them saying, okay, we're realizing that we're not being as clear as we could be.
Well, geez, I feel like I've only been complaining about this for 5 years, but okay, fine. That's fine. To defend the Windows Insider folks, who I do like, by the way, I will say it's very possible in this case that there's a big difference between the young people writing these blog posts and the engineers in the back room who are working on the builds. Yeah. And they don't necessarily all get all the information either. It's possible that it never occurred to anybody to come to the Insider people and say, hey, by the way, you got to warn people because this is that one-way dead-end road that Throck keeps talking about. Because it is, and whatever. But, I mean, fundamentally, like I said right up front, the important thing to understand is you have to be technical enough to handle what happens if you go down a path you don't want to go on. And I feel like you should be able, if you're in the Insider program, you should be able to handle wiping out your system and coming back.
Yeah, but that's a pain in the butt. But that's why
it is a pain.
It is.
Don't do it on a system that you're not working with,
or just whatever. I mean, I have lots of computers, so I can have different things. It's fine. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people doing this are probably in a similar situation.
All right. So can I go off notes for a second and add a Windows 11 item here?
Sure.
Because I think this is a good idea. So Sarah Beeland, who's listening right now, said, could we give a small review at this point of Windows 11? Just kind of like our personal off-the-cuff take about How is it? Like we're going to see it launch in like a couple weeks. Like, what do we think of it?
October 5th.
Yeah.
Actually, I second that, Sarah. You're right. You know, this is a good time to talk about that. We had a call on the radio show this weekend saying, "Should I?" You know, should I do it or not? Is it worth doing? And I said, well, as far as I can tell, it's just cosmetic, except for the Android store, which isn't there yet.
Well, it's worse than so. It's a little more complicated than that. You're right. By the way, it's not complete, but. Sometime in early October, I'm going to put out a post about this new book that I'm writing about Windows 11, and in it there will be a line. It's just like churning in my head. I can feel it coming out of my fingertips. That's going to say, on October 5, the Windows 11 Field Guide will be available in an incomplete pre-release form, just like the product that it covers, because it's not what Microsoft said it was going to be in October. There is a ton of evidence. Internally, if you look at code and just looking at the program, at the company rather, from a mile high, this thing was thrown together really quick. This was not something they planned last December, last April.
That's interesting.
This came together. It is going to ship in a very buggy, incomplete, and pre-release form to customers in October. And I'll say that to be a jerk. It's just a fact. And because of the way they can update Windows, it will be updated continually until it gets to a point, I would say maybe in mid-2022, where a new major version of Windows should be from a quality level.
Well, that's terrible. So you really should wait to next year.
Well, it depends. You know, there's a story coming up we're going to talk about why Windows 11 performs better than Windows 10. And one of the central components of that story is how little different Windows 10 and 11 are fundamentally. Windows 11 has a new. It's not even a full UI. It's I don't even know what to call it. It's not a new UI. It's a slightly changed UI. Right. There's some Android app stuff coming that's very exciting for sure. It's not that much, you know. Right. So I guess in some ways you could kind of make the argument, well, it's still a kind of a safe bet. The problem is when you screw with stuff that people interact with every day, the taskbar, the start menu, you know, the right-click menus and all this stuff.
Yeah. That,
unfortunately, is an area where you're going to get into trouble with lots of little problems. You know, like the shipping version of Windows 10, when you right-click the recycle bin, has a different style menu than when you right-click the desktop. It's like this is something that's already fixed in the dev channel, and it's such a small thing, but it also says a lot about fit and finish and consistency and the kind of work that needs to happen for a product before it can ship to the public, you know. And so I guess at that point you just have to think, well, why are they doing this? And I think we've already discussed that on the show. It has a lot to do with COVID-era PC buying dropping off a cliff and them wanting to throw a bone to PC makers and get people to upgrade to new hardware by artificially inflating the hardware requirements, which I think we've, if not proven, have certainly, hinted are arbitrary and are not required to meet the security requirements that they have. I think it's about helping the industry. So most people, you can just kind of move forward. Most people aren't going to get it on October 5th, for one thing, so don't worry about it.
Right.
But, you know, if you're buying a new PC, as always, it will probably be a better experience. But I think you're going to have...
Even that, though, sounds like... And is this based on the beta versions? Is it possible that, you know, all of a sudden everything will click into place and the
Leo, you could today go to blogs.windows.com and find the latest blog post, go to the Windows Insider part, find the latest blog post about the beta branch build that they released, and see for yourself the 110, whatever the list is, known issues that are still in this product. This thing is going to ship in 3 weeks on computers.
Yeah.
There is no way that those problems get fixed.
Okay. Now let me give my review, which is very different from Paul's.
Okay.
By the way, the cynic in me would say, well, how is that different than Windows 10? Patch Tuesday, 80 flaws were fixed. So, okay. So I'm sorry. I didn't mean to steal your thunder, Mary Jo.
This is Windows 10 plus the stuff that's unique to Windows 11.
Right.
Right?
So
That's awesome.
I feel I understand Paul's gripes with where things are at, but I feel like this is exactly the same situation as Windows 10. It could not be more similar. When Windows 10, every version of Windows 10 ships to consumers when it starts rolling out through the channels, first consumers and then businesses later, there's always a huge list of known issues and bugs, and they squash them as they go along based on people putting these things on their machines, and then they get reports back. I'm not saying that as an excuse for quality issues and such with Windows 11. I'll just tell you, as a normal user who doesn't do a lot of power user type things, it's been very easy for me to figure it out. There's a few bugs that I run into every once in a while. Like one that's really been bugging me a lot lately is on Mail, the built-in Mail program on Windows 11 and on Windows 10. When I use that on Windows 11, a lot of times I start to type a mail document and it won't let me type. Like I start typing letters and nothing shows up in the field. And I have to manually close the Mail app and restart it, and then it will work. Those kind of things occasionally are happening to me, but I'm not somebody who ever used to like right click on the taskbar and expect something particular to happen. Right. I use Windows very sparingly and very lightly. When you're talking about consistency things, like you're like, when you click on the recycle bin with right click and you see a menu, if you ask me what that menu looks like, I have no idea. I don't even look at it. I just look at the words, right? And I just am like, okay, there's a thing I want to do, done. So if you're somebody who does notice those kind of design consistency things and who cares a lot about them, you probably are not going to be happy with Windows 11 because it feels like they didn't finish the job. If you're someone like me who doesn't notice those kind of things at all, like somebody said to me, didn't you notice the rounded corners on blah, blah, blah? But they said it unironically. I'm like, nope, did not notice it.
Right.
I'm like, no, I didn't. I never look at like wallpapers. I never look at, does my color theme match this or that? You know what I do? I click on the start button sometimes to look for something. I use the search box sometimes to look for things. And otherwise, the apps that I use are pinned. I don't care if they're in the middle, on the right, or on the left. As long as they're there and I can find them, I'm good.
So first of all, there's just two things to what you just said. The one thing that gets lost in my little mini rant there is I love Windows 11. Windows 11 fundamentally captures an important thing that you don't always get with upgrades, which is that when I go back to Windows 10, I actually miss Windows 11. I think I like the way it looks. I do like the rounded corners. I like the themes. I like all that stuff. I think it's nice.
Yeah.
The stuff I didn't right click taskbar. I mean. Yeah, that's going to be a problem for power users, but it's sort of like the Insider program.
Yeah.
Power users should know how to work around those things. So whatever. I think for average consumers, this is a pretty attractive, modern-looking system, and it's nice,
Yeah.
But as a reviewer, I mean, it's not so much about what I need. I try to think about it like from the position of normal people or other people or groups of people, and I think the people who are going to be put out by this the most, like I said, are power users. I think that normal users will like it, and it's enough like Windows where they won't be immediately confused and can't find stuff. I think there's a start button, there's a start menu, there's buttons on the taskbar, the recycle bin, whatever. I like it. It needs more time. The problem is if you don't hit holiday 2021, you don't lose 3 months or 6 months. You lose a year. Because if you're not going to ship it now, you just ship it for next holiday. So why would you ship it in the spring? It doesn't even make any sense. So I don't know what – well, no, I do. I think I said up front what it was. I mean, I'm sure Microsoft was looking at the numbers, looking at their own numbers with Windows and said, we got to goose this thing. What can we do? And it can't just be lipstick on a pig. We got to have a big promotion, and we'll make a big deal out of this thing. We just sat through an Apple event where they announced almost nothing new. And it was the biggest production in the world because you still got to treat it like it's the big thing. And I feel like we're going to go through a little bit of that with Windows 11. Fundamentally, it's the same operating system, which is good and bad.
Right. I know. Right.
And I like it. I do like it. I do like it.
The point you began with is probably the most important point, which is you're not going to get it unless you get a new computer. Yeah. Or you get offered to it. You aren't going to get it October 5th for most people. Nobody's going to rush out. Nobody needs to rush out and get it. I guess the only question is if you got a new computer with Windows 11 on it, would it be a bad experience? Would it be unreliable?
I don't think so.
Not more than Windows 10.
No.
Well, but my fear, though, is because they have screwed with so many little things, that can introduce problems. I do sort of feel, and like I said, there is a long list of known issues. You can go see it for yourself.
But there's not, I mean, last year, Windows 10 had such showstoppers as erasing all your data. I mean, there were some very bad showstopper bugs introduced with Windows updates last year. It's tough, though, from a PC maker's perspective. One of the things you see on new computers, regardless of which version of Windows, is they try to add value in some ways, right? And there are some instances where PC makers add actual value. There's like presence sensing technology, and HP and Lenovo do this, and probably others, where in addition to having Windows Hello, it senses when you get up from the computer and walk away, and it shuts things down. It recognizes when humans are walking up to it, and it peaks the camera awake. And if it's you, it then kicks into Windows Hello, which is a Windows feature, and it creates a more seamless kind of sign-in experience than just Windows. But there is also a lot of crap, right? I think we can acknowledge that PC makers put a lot of junk on there that just duplicates functionality in some cases. So there's kind of a mix of that. And I would say from a reliability perspective, one of the unknowns about Windows 11 is they didn't even know about this 6 months ago. This just happened. So these things are going to ship with what on it? Like, what's HP and Lenovo and Dell and Asus and Acer and everyone else going to put on these systems that makes any sense at all? And how could it have been tested enough? So in addition to... Sorry, go ahead.
To that point, there's a Microsoft page somewhere that I've seen that lists all the PCs that at some point are going to have Windows 11. I forget where this is that I saw this, but a lot of them show ships with Windows 10 will be upgradable to Windows 11.
Interesting.
Like that's often like the line that's on there. So maybe some of them will just not ship with Windows 11, right? And they'll be like, you know what? If people want to upgrade to it, they can when they feel like it's time.
The year that we started the podcast, Microsoft was getting ready to launch Windows Vista. And if you remember back to that time, it was semi-unique in that they launched the commercial version first in November 2006, I think. And then in the following January, February, whenever it was, they did the consumer version. And I think at that point, the feeling was like, we're missing holiday season. Who cares? And we will have a couple more months of testing, and we can make sure that all the consumer drivers and blah, 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 and all this stuff works. And then we have time to get PCs in the market that meet the hardware requirements, because remember, they had Aero Glass at the time and so forth. This time, it's like, I don't think we're going to see a lot in the commercial side right away, right? This is consumer PCs. Like, they're trying to hit the holidays, So, yeah, I think you're right. It would be interesting if people had the choice of the two operating systems, right? Which is a kind of a weird thing to do. Or maybe when you configure it, you can choose it right there. I don't know.
Boy, it's not, you're right. It's not a lot of computers that are coming with Windows 11.
Right.
This is more like that Windows 11 ready thing, right?
Yeah. I think Windows 11 has been in planning longer than we know.
Okay.
I think it's only been in testing for a few months, like however many months, 6, 7. But I think they knew they were going to do this a while ago, and they knew because they started telling OEMs, and OEMs actually got a build of Windows 11 for them to put on PCs like several months ago, I believe. And this one that's coming in October is like the second version that they're going to get. So it's not like they're suddenly seeing it for the first time like now. They've been playing around with the code and being able to test it on new hardware for a while, is my understanding. So it's not as sudden as maybe it feels to us, is my point.
But it's also not the 3-year header we used to get for Windows.
Right.
I mean,
right.
Even Windows 10 shipped really quickly. They announced it in late September 2014, and they shipped it in July 2015. So that's only, 9 months or whatever? 9 months-ish. I mean, that's very quick. This is half that time, And it's not like we have 5 years of experience where they really got
Yeah.
it right, and so we can trust them.
Yeah. I guess I feel like this is so much Windows 10 under the covers that it. I know we're
That's
calling it a new operating system, but it's kind of a new operating system, but it's also kind of Windows 10
right.
20 H2 plus some stuff on top.
Yeah. I like it. I mean, I like it.
I'm glad
It's
to hear
one of
you
those
like
things.
it. That's good.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't have
No, I
known
really
that from
like
the
it. Like,
beginning of your comments.
Yeah. Well, it's just as we, again, as we get close to this, there's all these little shocks happening now with, the insider thing that came up earlier. Mm-hmm. And it's like, man, I just feel like this is being railroaded.
Yeah.
Last year,
Really?
Microsoft, we came down hard on them, but they made the right decision to delay Halo Infinite for a year, even though they had all the monster drinks and Doritos Locos Tacos lined up with all the promotions and everything. It was like, no, we got to stop the train. We get this thing is, and that's a game, for some reason, this thing, oh no, this has to hit, it has to hit right now.
Do you actually think they should stop the train? Like, do you think it's in bad enough shape that they should? Because I don't.
I don't think there is any such thing as a version of Windows that needs 3 months of testing before they ship it to the public. I think this thing should be tested for longer. Yeah. And I don't mean delay it for a year, but I mean, I really do believe that in May-ish 2022, we're going to have a version of this OS that has gone through 6+ months of updates. It has Android app support. And this is the thing they talked about last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all.
I think it'll be just like Windows 10. Like it'll ship. There'll be some people screaming about problems at the beginning, and then it'll iron itself out over the months.
Yeah,
it seems like that's our new way. Which, unfortunately, that's the way Windows is going into market and tested.
It's a good motto. Windows 11 almost as reliable as Halo Ultimate. I think that's a good positioning. Almost as well tested
as a game.
Games are more important. You can't screw around with a game.
Well, I mean,
you can't keep fixing it, can you? Can you?
Yeah,
though?
sure you can.
Do people do that? They do.
Oh, Mary Jo.
Well, as you know, I don't have a lot of experience in this market.
I will never forget this. I tell these stories a lot. I'm sorry if I'm boring everybody, but I went and saw the Xbox 360 before they shipped it. And at the time, I had 2 big questions. The first one was these 2 Power Mac towers next to each other with a wired controller coming off of it. They had just shown off what the Xbox was going to look like. Beautiful little white thing. And I was like, how are you going to get that giant thing into that little thing? And they were like, oh, no, we got guys working on that. And the Xbox 360 had horrific reliability problems with the red ring of death and people sending them back repeatedly because it would overheat and everything. So that was one thing. But the other one was that issue you just raised. For the first time with the Xbox 360, Microsoft was going to let game makers update the games after they shipped on disk. They were going to do software updating over the internet. And I said, well, aren't you worried that that's going to lead to lower quality releases at launch? And they said, oh, no, we have a system in place for that. And I'm sure they did.
2077 said, hold my beer.
Well, I mean, this is the whole world now. It's like just ship it. We'll
unplayable
fix it.
In many cases.
Right.
Unplayable, and then they fix them in post.
Yeah. So, look, it's not like I don't mean it like I have the answers. I look at this thing just kind of logically, and I see all the problems, and it's like, well, I hope it goes well. I mean, I have okay experiences for the most part with it. I mean, I'm on the dev channel now on most PCs too, so my experience now is kind of warped, right? Because I am on the less stable. One of the problems I have, I thought it was I actually measured it. I took a screenshot. My icons are not centered anymore. They're shifted over to the right. I know that sounds ridiculous.
A lot of people are having that. No, a lot of people are having that.
It's a known issue. Yeah.
Yeah.
They just today released a build and acknowledged it and said they were working on it. So that's only the dev channel, I guess. But I'm like, that doesn't that's not centered. I mean,
so what I told the radio caller was nothing in Windows 11 you need to have, and good news, you'll be able to stay with Windows 10 till 2025, right?
If you want to, but you'll also be able to go to Windows 11.
And at any point, you can go to Windows 11 if you're in the mood. But you don't have to.
They're going to get it. Nobody's going to get there.
Nobody's going to make you do that, right?
Well, yeah. But
no, they say no. They say no.
Yeah.
Well, they should have put that system into the Insider program then, because if they say no to that, I mean, why wouldn't that be a thing now? If that's going to be a feature of Windows 11, I mean, put it in the beta.
Well, but you could, and I think a lot of people probably will. Look there's still people using XP, and I had somebody call me and say, I like Vista. Can I stay with Vista? And I said, no. Basically, no, the answer is no.
No, that's not a good idea.
She said, for some reason, my browser stopped working.
I was going to say the browser's going to be the big problem.
Yeah.
That's what happened. She was using IE. I'm sure it was, IE 9? And, she's, oh, my God. Oh, my God. This says Blockbuster. I don't think this is really a blockbuster, but you be the judge. Microsoft will not support Windows on ARM on an M1-based Mac.
You may have heard this myth, Leo, that Windows runs better on a Mac.
Yeah, not anymore.
And not anymore. Well, actually, so with Windows, with M1-based Macs, one of the new version of the, it's not really a myth. I mean, it works great, actually. The new version of the story is that you put Windows 10 on ARM on the thing in Parallels in the virtual environment, and it runs great. You're like, neat. So Parallels just came up with a new version. They're going to support Windows 11 and what's it called? macOS Monterey, I think, the new version of macOS. Cool. When those things ship in October or whenever they ship. And you can install Windows 11 on ARM through the Windows Insider program on these things. But if you're familiar with Parallels, you know that one of the cool things about it is if you need this for work or for yourself or whatever the reason is, you can, through the installation process or just the creation of a VM process, buy digitally Windows 10 in this case, download it to the computer, install it, you get your product key automatically applied. It's all really nice. It's really neat. But you can't do this on M1-based Macs because M1-based Macs cannot today virtualize Intel versions of Windows. You can only virtualize ARM versions, and ARM versions of Windows are not available for sale at retail. There's no way to do this. So you have to be in the Insider programs. This is an unsupported scenario. Like, it works, but if you're in the dev or beta channel and you're running Windows 11 inside of a VM on an M1-based Mac, you need to. It's going to update a lot. It's not a stable, supported environment. I had heard from a source back in late July that to expect an announcement in September. How this is all going to be settled, like there will be this will be a supported path, and instead, what I learned this week via the Register, who asked Microsoft about this, this is not a supported scenario. They said we're just not going to support this. So, yes, I mean technically you can still run Windows 11, and it's crucial because with Windows 11. You're getting x64 application compatibility. This is where the problems with Windows 10 and ARM go away. There's two things that helped us on an M1 Mac in particular, or explicitly only on an M1 Mac. First of all, the driver stuff doesn't matter. So if there's no driver available for your printer, blah, 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 whatever it is, doesn't matter. All that stuff goes to the Mac. It's fine. And the other one is the application compatibility. Most apps today are 64-bit. So if in the past, if you were running Windows 10 on ARM on an M1-based Mac, you didn't have access to the entire app library. Now you do. So actually, on an M1-based Mac, Windows 11 on ARM is semi-ideal. The performance is good. You don't have to worry about drivers. Application compatibility is great. Most people who do it probably don't even run, the UI. They're just running the apps they need. Who cares? It just works. It's not supported. So, anyway, there we are.
Don't you think the word is supported though? Like I don't think they're going to stop you from doing it or thwart you, right?
So actually, it turns out they temporarily did prevent Parallels from installing Windows 11 through the Insider program. Yeah. Parallels issued a workaround, and now they can do it again. But the problem is, again, it's not. Windows 11 has very strict hardware requirements. The case that Microsoft could make is that M1-based Mac does not meet those requirements.
Right.
You can't run Windows 11 on. They could actually prevent you from getting it, even through the Insider
they could,
program.
I guess.
So we'll see. I don't understand blocking someone from using your platform on a competing platform. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Right?
And you could
especially if you're paying for the license, right? Which you're going to have to buy the license, right? So. But
you can't for ARM. That's the problem. That's Anyway, it's kind of a. This was. I was told this was going to be fixed, so this is a little disheartening for me.
Maybe it still will. Maybe it still will be fixed because I was looking at the Register story, and I wonder if how high up that's been escalated. You know what I mean? Like,
why wouldn't Microsoft make it work? That's the thing I don't understand.
Well,
it's just another customer, right?
I don't know. I mean, there's no such thing as a market for ARM-based PCs like white box PCs, right? So, I mean, the Windows retail thing is just a vestigial leftover from the old days when you walk in a Best Buy and buy a box.
So Windows on ARM is always sold to an OEM for inclusion with a new computer.
Right. But since, I don't remember the time frame, but it's been available through the Insider program so that people who did buy ARM-based PCs could test future versions of Windows 10 and now Windows.
There's a gray market of OEM versions of Windows 10.
Yep.
There always has been. You know, people like Newegg will sell you the OEM version. I don't know if it's been separated from a PC. Usually their workaround is you have to buy some hardware to go with it because you're building a PC, right?
That's why SCSI controllers are still sold today. They're like $28. You get,
throw it out. Now you got a good copy of Windows. So I suppose that's not supported, right? So I suppose it could be that kind of not supported.
Right. So my worry, look, this is also, I guess we're falling into that if you're technical enough to A, you can do B, right? So my worry, though, is that Microsoft will, which is, let's face it, taking a pretty hardline stance on the Windows 11 hardware requirements, might come down and say, look, we're going to keep putting blockers in here that prevent you as a Parallels user from even using this thing. That would be bad. So,
but again, what would their incentive be? Just they don't want to support that? I don't understand. I mean,
I don't understand either. I do feel, look, we all know the scenarios where someone would probably want to use this, and there are developer reasons, IT support reasons. The old reasons, an individual for some reason wants to use a Mac but needs, the Windows version of Excel.
Lots of people like that.
Yeah, but I think that's a lot less than it used to be, right?
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And it's possible. I mean, of course, you could emulate Intel code on M1-based Macs, but we all know how slow that's going to be. I mean, we've done this before.
Apple does it. They have Rosetta 2 to do that. But that's
but translate to the whole piece.
That's an intermediate translation. You couldn't do that with an OS, I guess. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, I like you say, I don't care, but I don't hanker to run Windows apps on my Mac, but
yeah, I know.
Now here you got to address this because this.
Okay.
So we've talked so much about Windows 11 not really being much other than a cosmetic, lipstick on a pig. I think you said, but it sounds like the pig runs better under Windows 11. Is the performance
why
better?
Would that be?
Yeah,
right. It is. So it's pretty artificial. And not in the sense that it's fake. It's just that if you consider Windows 11 is that weird thing. This is when Mary Jo asked us to kind of mini review it. You run into this topic. It is Windows 10, but it's also a new thing, right? So if you consider it to be a feature update to Windows 10, which it is, if you consider it to be the type of thing we used to get twice a year, but now it's the second one is now we're going to call it Windows 11. It is. What they're doing is they're taking that H2 release, which is now called Windows 11, and they're adding a lot of performance enhancements under the hood that they could very easily add to the other thing because these things are identical, but they're not, right? And that's where it becomes faster. And so I guess it's like anything else with Windows. What is the difference between Windows 10 Home and Windows 10 Pro? Why are those differences there? Sometimes it feels kind of arbitrary, but you have to draw a line somewhere. It bugs me that in this short period of time, whatever the period of time it has been, that they have figured out lots of little things they can do to make Windows faster, but they're not going to help the 1.3 billion people running Windows 10. They're going to help the invisible audience of who knows how many people that might run Windows 11 in the future instead. Like, to me, that's kind of a tough conversation to have because there is nothing intrinsic to Windows 11 that enables these performance enhancements.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's just kind of a tough.
So this does begin in the beginning of the separation between the two. They're going to start drifting apart more and more as time goes by.
Yeah, and there are things that Microsoft kind of said were Windows 11 features that are going to pop up in Windows 10, right? Well, and I think one of them is going to come up a little bit later, but You remember the direct storage thing from the Xbox feature was originally touted as a Windows 11 feature. It's coming to Windows 10, so some of this stuff, but it's like low-level optimization of sleep and resume, or how apps can load on the PC, on the CPU rather. Like these are just, why you could do this? You could do this for both. Why wouldn't you? It's the same code. Why wouldn't you just do it?
And when I watched the video for this, the Microsoft Mechanics video, and I read their blog post, so many of these things, I'm like, wait, how didn't they say like 10 years ago that we could do this? Right? Like the sleep and resume stuff. I'm like, how long has that been like a touted feature of Windows? But it never really worked right on any of the PCs I have. But
it's fair to say it's a different experience on every PC for sure. The other thing that's interesting is they talked a lot about in that video that you just referenced, the hardware requirements and the why of it. And they tried to provide a little more color to the justification they gave in that blog post a couple of weeks ago. And the more they talk about it, the more I realize this is just waving hands. Like this is just, they talk about things like DCH drivers, like it's a new thing and it makes it more reliable. Those have been required in Windows 10 since 2018. Like that's not new.
Also, virtualization-based security is another one of those, right?
Yeah,
I'm like, wait,
not new.
Isn't that already in 10?
But finally, there was this quote, and this exact number appeared in that blog post when they finally provided some numbers. They said, with these newer chipsets and this driver model, which again, not new to Windows 11, we are now seeing a 99.8% crash-free experience in the Windows 11 preview. That's fascinating. But they don't tell you what the crash-free experience is on Windows 10. It's probably 99.3%, right? Like you're only getting one number. Like, when you have like a chart that can show you two different things, you can kind of compare them. And one way you can screw around with that is to make the chart like a weird scale so it looks like it's much bigger than it really is. They don't even give you the other one. There's a question mark, and then this one is 99.8% crash-free.
It's not even.
Well, when you really think about it, right? Well, they just don't tell you what the other one is. So, what was it on the other one?
Might even be better. We don't know.
It might be 99. Yeah, 99.9%. Who knows? Anyway, it's just.
No, I was glad you went in, Paul, and debunked some of this stuff because when I watched the video, when you've just watched the video, you're like, oh, that sounds good, right? Like, that sounds like good improvements. And then I'm like, but wait, I don't know enough about the history of some of these things to know if it's actually an improvement.
Exact analog to an Apple event. It sounds good. That sounds like an improvement.
Yeah.
Right, but is it? So how much, what is the crash rate now? 98? 99.8?
What they're saying is that thanks to using newer chipsets, which we know have no impact whatsoever on security or reliability, and this DCH driver model, which I'm now telling you is also required in Windows 10, they're seeing a 99.8% crash-free experience in the preview. And I'm not saying that figure is wrong. What I'm saying is you didn't tell us what that figure is for Windows 10. And it's probably identical. Why wouldn't it be? It's the same system. I don't know.
Yeah. You know why they have to? I'm pretty sure the reason they made this video was everybody saying, well, Windows 11 is just Windows 10, right? With some rounder corners.
Well, this is
so they made this to say no.
This is the paradox of Windows 11, right? It's just Windows 10. Yeah. But it's better than Windows 10. Okay. But, it's which is it? Is it the same or is it different? It's the same. I don't know.
Yeah.
There are, whatever, they've drawn a line. So the fact is, the changes they made in Windows 11 and not arbitrarily, but have decided not to make in Windows 10 will make Windows 11 better. Fair enough.
It's irrefutably newer than Windows 10.
It is. It's true. And it's the number is one higher, so it's going to be 10% better.
Yeah.
It's very much, it's a Spinal Tap thing. Mm-hmm. It's one better.
I'll tell you, if it does anything to make my battery better and to make wake on automatically happen, I'm all in. Those would be two amazing things.
I think I shouldn't say the exact computer. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it was the 14-inch Spectre X360 HP computer, which Windows 10 obviously came out this past year. That thing I believe it's that computer, but you open the lid and it's like on, like it's that in the time it takes you to lift the lid. the lock screen is sitting there waiting for you to do something.
Wow.
And if you've configured it the way I told you before, you don't even see the lock screen because it will just sign you right in. Like that one's actually really quick. So it must be that DHCP stuff or DHC driver stuff or whatever. But I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I don't mean to rant so much about Windows 11. Like I really just want people, before anyone emails me, it's Mary Jo Foley at cd.com. I love Windows 11. Like I actually really do like it. But I also sort of recognize there's over 1 billion people in the world using this other thing, and it works. And I don't know why you really. There's always a tough customer service thing. Like you go to your cable provider and you're like, hey, so you're selling the thing I pay $92 a month for $35 because I get the new deal. No, that's only for new customers. But I've been paying you for 10 years. Why wouldn't I get this deal? And that's what it feels like. It's like I don't know what that. It's a very common thing out in the world. You throw all this stuff at the new people, even though you have this established base.
New is always better.
Yeah. And also, so far, at least, there's been no Microsoft wording around, and it'll be free for a limited time only for people upgrading. So far, there's not that.
They haven't said that at all.
It seems like it's just going to be free.
Free.
And that's,
hopefully,
by the way,
they've done that right.
The other devil's advocate response I get, it's like the people like, well, you're not supposed to use a Windows Insider build on a production computer. Thanks, Einstein. They'll also say, well, what do you expect for free? What do you expect for free? You're complaining about ads. Well, how are they going to make money on this thing? They still sell it to PC makers, idiot. But okay, fair enough. I guess I'm getting it for free. I'm not worth anything. I mean, I don't understand.
You are the product, Paul Thurrott. Don't forget.
You are now.
I'm a terrible product.
I'm a terrible product.
I'd agree with that, but yeah.
I would have been sent. They would have delayed me.
All right, let's move on to new dev builds for Windows 11. This would be the next generation, I guess, of Windows.
We can plow through this. So there's last Thursday, as they've been doing, they released new builds for dev and beta. No new features in beta, of course, because they're heading right to completion. And then the dev build had exactly one new thing. And guess what it is? When you right-click the recycle bin, you knew this was going to come back. The menu's consistent now. So that's when that happened. So they fixed that. During the show, by the way, right before the show started, they actually released a new dev build today on a Wednesday. I don't know why. That's the first time I think they've done that with Windows 11.
You're right. Yeah, you're right.
And it has exactly one new feature. And that feature, what is the new feature? When you click on the power button, the power button that's available in Start, there's a new menu item, for sign-in options. This is kind of a weird thing. This is always kind of separate in Windows 10 too. There's a difference between power options, sleep, shutdown, and restart, and sign-in options. Actually, sign-in options is a sign-in options. There's in Windows 10, there's a separate menu for like locking the PC, signing out, right? Mm-hmm. That kind of thing. That is also in the Windows 10 Start menu, but it's on your picture. Your little change account settings. So now you can change account settings from the power button too for some reason. Or no, it's sign-in options. I don't know why that's there, but they added it. So nothing major. Also, the Tips app has been refreshed to look more like Windows 11.
Oh, what a relief.
I know. But you won't get that till next year. Or sometime, who knows. Maybe you'll get in December, actually. Who knows? A lot of the stuff we're testing in dev could come in late October, for all we know, right?
Or never.
It could come anytime. Or never.
Or never. Right.
That's true, too.
We don't know. Yeah.
So you were complaining about, and I agree with you, about how hard it is in the new setup to change the default apps, particularly to change your browser. I think Microsoft trying to lock you into Edge. Mozilla's found a workaround.
Yeah, and it's seamless. What I'd like to see them do is hand this over to other browser makers. So it seems like I do complain about Windows 11 a lot. There is the system for changing default apps in Windows 11 is broken. There's no other way to say it. It's terrible. I don't know what. Well, they were clearly thinking of protecting their own apps, because if they let you move off of Edge and they let you use a non-Edge browser and from the widgets thing or from Cortana or wherever else you get this, I mean, you're not hitting Bing, you're not hitting MSN. This is how they drive usage, right? So they're making it really hard not to do that. Mozilla just I think they said I can't remember the
How'd they
exact
figure
word.
it out? What did they do?
Reverse engineered it is what they said. I think they must have looked at the traffic and figured out how it was doing it or something. I don't know. But if you have Firefox and you've updated the latest version and you say, make Firefox my default browser, it just works.
Oh, that's nice.
And it works for everything.
They probably scripted
the way
it.
browsers used to work.
They scripted it. That's all.
Yeah.
They were a little PowerShell that goes out.
Yeah.
Changes the setting.
But this is good, right? Because, in other words, if you bring up that widgets interface, which is terrible, and you click on one of the stories about a woman wearing a underwear or whatever bathing suit thing they always talk about now, that story, that terrible story from Glamour or E or whatever it is, will now open in your browser and not in Microsoft's browser. So they are. It is literally the default browser. So
it's
good for them.
You know, could just be like a little regedit hack, little file that you load that changes all of the extensions.
Yep. It could be something Microsoft tries to thwart as well, right?
I know.
That's the other
I wonder
way.
if they're going to block that. I wonder that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, of course they could. I hope they don't.
Yeah.
And
if they do, keep going, Mozilla. Keep
I've
trying to
always
find
said
a
that's how
way.
it should be. Every browser has a button that says "Make me the default," and it should just do it.
Just right. Well, that's what Mozilla says. And by the way, they complained about this when Windows 10 came out 6 years ago.
Yeah.
They said, look, every platform has this. If you click it, it should just work.
Right.
You know,
I do it on
it's
a Mac.
amazing.
I do it on Linux. Don't have to do anything.
Yep.
Microsoft in Windows 11 not only does it not work when there's nothing to click, you have to go through an entire all the file types one by one. It's the dumbest thing in the world.
Yeah. This is probably not some magical hack, but it could also be thwarted. I'm sure.
We'll see.
Are you ready for a Windows 11 ad? When we saw this, if you watch the NFL, for instance, and who doesn't, you saw it many, many times.
And this is exactly the kind of manly, action-oriented ad you want to see when you're watching football.
The first 10 seconds, Lisa says this is an Apple ad. I said, no.
That's what I thought, too.
Well, because I saw the Windows 11 wallpaper, I knew it wasn't.
Yeah. The toilet paper, you mean?
This is the worst ad ever. And I keep saying that. She says, no, it's a good ad. This woman is going through some strange fugue state nightmare, a.k.a. Windows 11. It's horrible.
It's odd that they didn't choose that for the Windows 11 tagline, by the way.
Yeah, fugue state nightmare. Oh, I can't play it because, I don't know. It's Firefox or something. I don't know. No, I could. It's a technical thing. I don't mind getting in trouble.
It's a very Apple-esque ad.
It's totally Apple-y. But the poor woman, I mean, like, it's not the computing experience I would look for.
Sure.
It's
once there was gaming in there, I was like, and we're done.
It's like a Dali painting. It's like she's falling through things and going out through things.
Right. So there's a scene in it where it's like a guy in a really small boat, like maybe a Vietnamese rice paddy, and that stupid widgets thing is coming out of the water, and all I can think is like, yeah, you can't avoid this anywhere, folks. That's the message. You can try to block this all you want, but it's going to rise out of the water like Chuck Norris, and there it is. You know.
I don't know why it will not play in Firefox. Let me try it in Safari. I love the fact that she has a completely ambiguous ethnicity.
Right.
You have no idea. And that's, of course, intentional.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Like many commercials, many models these days, right?
Yeah.
It's the way it is.
So this Surface event is next Wednesday. It's a week from now. How did we get there? We're
I
there
know.
already.
Here we are. Yep.
Yeah.
11 a.m.
Lots of rumors.
Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. We'll be covering it live, of course. Paul has consented to bring his snark to the table, and he'll lay it right down there.
I'm actually a little overwhelmed by how much complaining I did today. I feel kind of weird about it.
No, I like it. Don't.
Come on. It's your normal world.
This is
That's
Paul's
you.
world. We just live in it.
It is. Exactly.
What will we...
The rant.
This is your chance without fear or favor.
We're not under embargo. We don't know. We're
to
guessing.
tell us
so.
what you think will happen on next Wednesday.
There's a lot of rumors, right? Everybody agrees Surface Duo 2. Everybody is sort of agreeing that's going to happen. And big camera bump on the back, likely.
So
for that.
I'm not going to buy the iPhone. I
Right.
probably will buy a Pixel 6, but this is a window of opportunity for Microsoft. I could actually
They're not ready. They're
fall
not
for
ready.
this. You don't think I should
Not
get the Duo? No.
Wait till third version, if third ever exists. That's the world.
I
with
really
Microsoft.
wanted to like the Duo. I really did. And I returned it
Not
after
ready
2
yet.
weeks. I just
Yeah.
It was the software more than the hardware.
Yes, it is the software more than the hardware.
Never updated the version of Android, by the way.
Right. Yeah, still on Android 10, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's hysterical. It's
Yep.
not well, the new one will be
11.
11. 12 is
Oh,
the
the new
current
one. We'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if it was
true.
11.
Yeah, I think it'll be 11.
What if Microsoft forked Android?
Well, I was going to say, I think from their perspective, they probably want you not to worry about that part of it because they customize the
It's a
OS.
very
as much as
special version of Android.
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Otherwise, rumors include Surface Pro 8, Surface Book 4, and the Surface Book 4 not having a detachable screen, which is good to hear. It'll have like something that kind of cantilevers up and is attached.
What distinguishes it from the Surface laptop if it doesn't have the
Right. So Windows Central says it may be called something like Surface Laptop Pro. That's a rumor.
That'd be interesting.
They could rename it and not call it the book. There's rumors there could be a new Pro X, but all of the things that people are hearing have very incremental updates.
Right.
There's a rumor on The Verge that there could be one model of Surface Pro 8 that has a Thunderbolt port, but only one model.
Why would you put that everywhere? Just put it on one.
Yeah. And then Surface Go 3 with just some new chips, faster chips.
Well, that's a big deal, by the way.
Still
'cause
ARM
the
or will it
Pentium
be in-
stuff is terrible. No, that was Pentium.
Oh,
Gold,
the Go
remember,
is
so-
the Go is that Pentium Gold. Yeah.
Yeah, the rumor is
I don't know.
Pentium
None
Gold
of these
on the
are
low end.
exciting to me. Maybe I'm just getting jaded on the hardware.
Well, I mentioned the many computers I have on Dev Channel, and the one I successfully prevented from going to the newest Dev build was actually Surface Book 2. And looking at Surface Book, this is a computer that has huge bezels, right? Just in the same form factor. It could literally be an inch bigger, the screen, and not like half an inch, like an inch bigger. That is very needed. And honestly, for the people that use this type of product, which can have a GPU, by the way, that's the big differentiator for Surface Laptop. I would say, get rid of the detaching screen. I don't think very many people use that at all. When you do, you kind of hobble the computer. You detach the GPU for one thing. It turns into like a U series, or whatever. Yeah, probably a U series chip. But it's just, it's a great computer. But I don't think the detaching thing. All that is an unreliability issue. I mean, for most people, just don't have it. I think that's smart. But I mean, what do you expect? I mean, I think Pro 8 is a good guess. Get it close to the Pro X form factor. Surface Go 3, I think, is a good bet. Duo, like you said, Duo 2, absolutely.
Do they still have they don't have an ARM?
Pro X is the ARM one.
That's the Pro X, and that will stay
the
on
problem
ARM?
with that is, I don't see what they should do is not update that, because that can only be very incremental, and that whatever they can do in the processor isn't going to solve that system's problems. They should wait till next year when you're going to get a Snapdragon chipset that actually performs well. That's the dream. So,
and meanwhile, they can improve Windows on ARM, which also
unless they do
barely working.
Well, Windows 11 will be that improvement, right? So we'll do the x64 compatibility stuff. I mean, I guess they could do another incremental, SHA-2, processor, whatever it is. But they'd be better off just leaving that thing alone. I don't see any reason for that.
Yeah. And then I saw today on Twitter, Kevin Gallo, who runs the Windows developer program or whatever they call it. He is going to be doing a session right after the Surface launch about adding pen and ink support to your apps for Windows 11.
Cool.
Which makes me wonder if there's going to be some more new pen related kind of announcements.
That would be good.
There.
So my guess is that's actually just Windows App SDK stuff, the Project
could
Reunion
be,
thing.
yeah.
And the idea is you have an existing app that is a desktop app, and if you use WinUI 3, you get that as part of it. That's my guess. But
Right,
So
because
new
aren't they
Paint
saying
probably
Windows
supports
11
pen,
adds a lot of new touch and pen stuff that isn't in 10?
So they kind of got rid of the explicit continuity / tablet mode stuff, and it just auto does everything now. I think the biggest touch related thing is that if you have a touch screen, it supports the same gestures you use on a touchpad, but on the screen. So if you use 3 fingers to minimize all windows or whatever on the touchpad, you can also do it right on the screen if you have a tablet. So there are some, but I wouldn't describe this as a huge release for multi-touch or pen.
I'm guessing they're not going to update the Surface Studio.
No. I would be surprised if they ever came out with another Surface Studio.
Same.
Yeah.
So here's what I want. That's what I was going to say.
Do the display.
Here's what I want them to do. Fine. We don't need the Surface Studio, but we do want that display.
Yep.
And they promised that a long time ago, didn't they?
Right.
So that's going to be my one more thing, my wild card, the Surface display.
Okay.
Right. I'd love to see
multiple sizes. Although,
and you still have to have the angle thing. Because then I could use it with any computer. And the ability to draw and all that stuff.
Yep.
Or draw, as you say.
Drawer.
You want to be able to draw on it.
Listen, I'm over here in Tripoli, and
as they say in Worcester. So I would love to see, because that's fine. I got it. The Surface Studio is kind of a dopey product because it was a really underpowered computer with an amazing display. Make the display. We'd buy the display, then I could use any computer I wanted on it.
I love it.
Love that idea. Or even have it be a laptop docking station. Maybe that's the new Surface dock.
Wow.
Ooh.
With a Hello camera.
That would need like Thunderbolt 4, though. I don't think you can do that over Surface.
Yeah.
By the way, that's one thing that's on the bingo card that Paul's just not going to ever get is having a Type-C power adapter.
It's probably for the best that this isn't a in-person event, because I'd be in the back going, Thunderbolt!
Thunderbolt! We want Thunderbolt! We want Thunderbolt! All right. I always love these events. Panos Panay, right?
Okay.
Yep.
In his new role as King of the Hill, as a member of the senior leadership. Well, they have a little pin that says SL on it. Or SLT.
SLT.
Yeah. Senior leadership team. It'd be cute. I bet there's a little pin or something, a secret handshake.
I think it's a ring so you can kiss it.
You kiss such an Adela's ring.
That's right.
We will cover it. As I said, we'll be streaming it live. Paul and I will be doing that 8 a.m. my time. I'll bring the bagels and Duncan, and you bring the Duncan. I'll bring the bagels. Let's make it fair.
Big box of Joe.
Big box of Joe. Everybody Duncan. I love this idea. I've wondered why Microsoft hasn't done it for a while. Passwordless login. Tell us about that.
So, actually, you know what? If you don't mind, let's wait till after the back of the book, because my tip and pick are both tied.
Save it.
So
Save it. All right.
That's all right.
I want to hear this because I tried to do this today and I couldn't. So I want to hear your tip and pick.
Oh, I can tell you how to do it, but I'm
Stay tuned.
not sure it's 100% necessary.
Stay tuned. It's coming.
Okay.
The best news of the week. We're going to talk about Xbox and the Dev and a lot more. And yes, the back of the book coming up. Dev. It's time for Dev, whatever Dev is. What is Dev?
Yeah, so Microsoft shipped .NET 5 last November. It was supposed to be the first integrated release of the new open source .NET with the old, .NET Core with the old proprietary .NET. They pushed back some of it to .NET 6, so that's coming out in November. But one of the things we found out in the interim is there's an update to Xamarin that's called .NET MAUI, which is like the mobile application user interface or something like that. It's sort of their version of, it's their version. It's Xamarin. It's the updated version of Xamarin. So it's sort of like Flutter. It targets multiple platforms with one code base. So you could write, instead of just iOS and Android, now it's iOS, Android, Windows, and Mac. And then there's some cross-pollination with Blazor for web apps as well. This was originally going to ship in November alongside .NET 6. And the whole time it's like, there's no way this is going to happen. There's no way. It's just too complicated. And last night they finally admitted it's not going to happen. So It will ship in the first, well, I'm going to call it mid-2022, but second quarter of 2022. It's fine. Honestly, it's not a huge deal. But we're still going to get .NET 6 itself, and then Visual Studio 2022. I'm sure there'll be if not some event, virtual probably, something in November around Visual Studio. And there was a new preview released today of .NET MAUI if you're a developer and are interested in using C# to write apps that go cross-platform. So it's just delayed. It's okay. This one's okay. Understandable.
Nice. Mm-hmm. All righty. Okay. Now you've got the floor, Paul. So let's get Xboxing.
All right. I'll be brief. There are two big features coming. This is supposed to be a Windows 11 feature, but the Xbox app on Windows 10 and, of course, on Windows 11 when it ships just got two new features, which are big. The first one is Xbox Cloud Gaming support, which we knew was coming, and that's the ability to, if you have an Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription, you can stream the 100-plus, it's probably 150-plus game catalog to the native app, not just the web browser like before. So we knew that was happening. That's there. That's great. The other one is a curiously missing feature that we haven't had since the Xbox Series X and S shipped last November, which is Remote Play, the ability to stream content from your console to Windows 10. If you have an Xbox One, that has worked all along, but when Xbox Series X and S shipped last year, they never had that compatibility. So this new Xbox app now supports that as well. So you can Remote Play via Xbox One or Series X and S. So that's a big deal.
Nice.
The other one is nothing really major here to say other than it is the second half of the month. And so Microsoft has announced the remaining titles it will deliver via Game Pass and I should say cloud gaming as well in many cases. Looking over this, in the second half of the month. So there's nothing here for me personally that's super exciting. But the one thing I see in here again and again and again is the phrase available on day one with Xbox Game Pass. And this is the reason, one of the reasons why Microsoft bought all those game studios. Not only did these things ship on the console, and not only do they ship on the PC in many cases, not only are they available via the cloud, meaning Xbox Cloud Gaming. Sorry, a lot of weird phrases here. They're available day and date, right? So as new games come out, they're starting to appear in Game Pass or cloud gaming. Sorry, day one. So that's cool. And then tied to this were a bunch of new games that get Xbox Touch controls. And what that means is if you're using Xbox Cloud Gaming on a mobile device like an Android phone or an iPhone or an iPad or even a Windows tablet, instead of having to use a controller, you can actually use on-screen controls in these games that were designed originally for the console. So Crimson Skies, that Xbox, actually that might be OG.
That was a
Xbox.
fun. That's real OG.
Yeah, I think it's OG. Halo Spartan Assault, Halo Wars Definitive Edition, Halo Wars 2, and the Medium, Tropico 6, a lot of games. So they've added a bunch of new games to the Xbox Touch control support list as well.
Nice.
Cool. Yeah, that's good.
I have rebooted my Mac about 3 times, and I can now officially bring you the dystopian view of the future, a.k.a. Windows 11. This crazy lady is going to go into... Okay, immediately, I'm terrified. She's flying through a bunch of bikes.
She seems to be A-okay with what happened to her.
Now she's in the desert, and here comes Master Chief, and he's going to blow a thing out of the sky. But good news, it turns into purple smoke and rounded corners.
Well, it turned into that widget list with all the stupid the terrible
nice.
news stories.
And hummingbirds, now she's falling into quicksand, floating through a library, and a hummingbird comes to see her. Isn't that... Wait a minute. Now there's a guy in a boat. What's he doing in the library? I don't know, but at least he's got widgets.
Hey, Bob, I know you're out fishing, but you need to have a meeting.
And now, this is really horrible. She tears a hole in this work of art and pops through it and is dancing with a guy. Oh, but it's not really dancing because she's all on her laptop. Windows, a dystopian nightmare coming soon. To a
PC near you.
Near you.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a good ad. I'm just saying. I'm thinking most people see that don't even know what they saw.
Yep. Well, that's most ads, I feel like.
Yeah,
Microsoft is really taken these days with these fake views of UI where they use what looks like glass sheets.
Yeah.
And they
But it doesn't
pile
look
on
like
the
that,
little
does it?
components. No, it doesn't look like that at all. But I think it's an attempt to show through 3D how UI is layered. I mean, if you're a developer or a designer, that is how you create a UI, whether it's Android or Windows or whatever. But it's not an accurate representation of the UI. It makes it kind of strange.
You shouldn't do an inaccurate representation of the UI in an ad.
Oh, you mean like when they used to do HoloLens?
It's like a HoloLens ad. Yeah. It's really, you know what? There's a much better ad that I would like to play now for you.
Is it the I designed Windows 8 ad or whatever?
No, it's even better.
Windows 7.
Get ready.
Nice. Anthony.
It sounds terrible. I'm sorry.
Anthony Martin.
No, it was the 70s.
On Prince Street, in the Italian North End. The home for more
As
than
opposed to
50
the Irish
years
North
of the
End.
Prince Spaghetti Company.
I thought you said it was
Anthony
a
knows a
mole.
lot about local Italian customs.
No, that's where the
That's what
company
it
is.
said.
And he knows a lot about Prince.
North Street.
Because that's a local custom, too. Prince is more than just authentic.
Well,
It's
authentic if
something
you
that
think spaghetti
grows
comes
you.
from Boston.
With wheat germ and pastas leave out.
No, they're Italian immigrants there.
Oh,
It's
okay.
authentic Italian.
He takes his time going home.
Not on
But not
Wednesday.
today.
No.
Today is Wednesday. And as every family in the North End of Boston will tell you, Wednesday is Prince Spaghetti Day.
Anthony.
Stop smoking.
Anthony's 73 years old now. He's got emphysema. He's on oxygen.
I believe that man might have just passed away. I
No,
think that happened
actually,
this past year. Yeah.
Anthony
I think
for
that
the
guy-
Prince Spaghetti ad?
I believe he passed
The
away
kid?
this past year. Yeah.
Do you know him?
No.
No.
And how would Paul know that? That's wild. That he knows that.
It was in the
That's
paper.
what I mean.
It's in the paper
I
in
thought
Lowell.
Maybe you knew him.
It was in the
I thought
Lowell
maybe you knew
paper.
him.
Wait a minute. We got to look this up. Prince
I know.
Spaghetti
You have to look at it.
Guy.
believe
What do you
he
call him?
passed away.
Guy? Anthony
No, kid.
Yeah, he passed.
died. He did die.
August,
oh, my
August
God.
2020. He
Anthony
was a 12-year-old
Martignetti.
Italian immigrant at the time. Yep.
He was
Look
12.
at Paul knowing that.
He looked
Yep.
just like my family.
63 years old.
Oh, that's sad. He got actually an obituary in the New York Times.
Yeah.
Pasta
Wow.
eating bastard.
63. Cause still undetermined. He had severe
Those at the
sleep
time.
apnea.
There, I think we
You
determined
could
it.
hear that. You could hear it. In
Too much
1969, Anthony and several fellow pre-adolescents were approached in Boston's Little League by three men. It's the same old story. Oh, looking for Commercial Street. His friends replied rudely. Anthony, angelic and ingenuous, offered directions. The men were smitten. What is this? What am I reading here? They
This
turned
is how
out.
he was found out, right?
They turned out to be scouts for an advertising agency
Nice.
seeking a realistic location to film a pasta commercial and credible non-professionals to act in it. They signed him up. The mother, yelling for her son out the tenement window, but I wonder
was
who
not
the-
his real mother.
couldn't have been
Not
his
his
real
real-
mother.
No,
It-
there she is. Look, scroll down. You can see her picture.
It was broadcast for nearly 14 years in New England and then nationally.
Okay.
For Mr.
I
Martignetti.
remember seeing it so many times.
Oh, yeah, me too. It's indelibly in my head. It would in large part define his life.
Sure.
Yeah.
Mary
It's bad enough when you
Fiumara
peak in
played his
high school.
mother.
This guy peaked when he was 12.
It's sad when you peak when you're 12. Oh, there he is with Mary. The picture
Right?
with him and Mary.
Yeah.
He got a flat fee of several $100s plus royalties, which amounted to $20,000, and never worked another day. No, he worked for Polaroid, and then in machine shops, stores, and supermarkets. Eventually, associate court officer for the Massachusetts trial court in
Dedham. That's why, Paul, you did know him, didn't
Dedham. You saw him every time you went to court.
Sure. He never got tired of me saying, "Hey, Anthony."
That's amazing. Talk about a
Wednesday.
successful commercial. Here we are.
you?
How many years later? 60 years later.
I love that
50 years
commercial
later.
as a kid. It just
Yeah.
felt like my family, because
Me
we always
too.
ate the
Yeah.
same thing on same nights of the
too.
week.
It was practically my mom shouting out the window.
That
Yeah.
meal was served with a loaf of white bread.
Yeah.
and
Wonder
butter.
Bread. Wonder Bread.
Oh, we couldn't afford Wonder Bread. It was like the the local yellow version.
People would recognize him on the street and hug him.
Sure.
It's cute.
He was famous. Aw. What a nice story. I'm sorry I said all those mean things about him. I hate reading. You know what it really is? I hate reading obituaries of people dying younger than me. It's just like, oy, oy. All right.
It just shows us Windows Weekly is an educational show on all fronts.
You learn here.
I want a
new
hunk of cheese.
There's love, there's hugging, there's hunking, there's learning. It's a great show.
A little bit of bitching and moaning about Windows 11. But mostly it's...
Just
There's some ranting. There's occasional ranting.
Ranting.
It's okay. We love the rants.
Yeah.
Let's go to the back of the book. What do you say? And now,
Yes.
kicking off the back of the book, Mr. Paul Thurrott's tip of the week.
So...
Actually, you can start with an app pick for some reason.
Right. So yesterday, Microsoft announced that you will be able to remove your password from your Microsoft account. This is something they did for commercial Microsoft 365 customers back in March, which I got to be honest, I kind of don't remember, but okay, fine. And and what does this mean, and why would you do this, and how do you do it? That kind of thing. So I have an app pick and a tip of the week that are tied to this, right? So the tip of the week is you should remove your password from your Microsoft account. And the reason is it's safer, although I will say the baseline to me for account security online is to use a 2FA or a two-step authentication scheme of some kind, right? And Microsoft has an app called the Microsoft Authenticator that provides this capability. It's a smartphone app. You get it for iPhone or Android. It also has other features. It does password autofill in mobile and all that kind of stuff. And it supports non-Microsoft accounts, right? So you can do your Google account through there, although actually Google has a really seamless way of handling this now. Other accounts as well. So you can do two-step authentication for multiple accounts. It's not just Microsoft. So that's the app pick. So the first step is you need the app. The app is Microsoft Authenticator. Technically, you could use other Authenticator apps as well, but the Microsoft Authenticator app has other functions which I think are useful. The second step is to actually do it, and this is we should talk about the why a little bit. Like, why would you do this? The truth is, if you're using it's not 2FA technically, two-step authentication. You're using the Microsoft Authenticator. I'm turning into Boston. Thanks, guys.
Anthony!
Jeez. I've been gone for 4 years. Anyway, so I don't know where that came from. I'm sorry. You use the Microsoft Authenticator app.
Yes.
You never actually type in a password, right? So if you need to sign in, you've just bought a new computer, you type in your email address for your Microsoft account, you hit next, it says we're going to send a prompt to your Microsoft Authenticator app, and it works great. You don't never type in a password. If you're on a mobile device and you need to sign into the OneDrive app or the Outlook app or whatever it is, same thing. You never have to type in this password. So you actually technically never even need it anyway. However, passwords are insecure, and there are backup methods of authentication where someone could, with your password, still authenticate against your account and break into it, right? So, for example, if you still have configured in your Microsoft account the ability as a backup to send a text message, that could be intercepted, or to authenticate via your email address, and maybe your email is open on some computer or whatever. You can still get into it. So one of the ways, and passwords are easily guessed, right? Everyone has terrible passwords. So by eliminating the password from your account, you actually make that account safer. So the way you do it is from the web. You don't do this from the Microsoft Authenticator app, although that would make sense. So you go to account.microsoft.com, click on security, go to advanced security, and I should probably have had that open, but you will see an option below the top. Let me just do it myself now as I'm saying it, instead of just saying what it is. I had to send a notification to my Microsoft Authenticator app to even do this. That's hilarious. So I will do that. You can see how secure this is.
It's funny because I don't think I ever said yes to do this, but I think I've been doing this all along because it says passwordless enabled, right, on my Authenticator account.
Interesting.
So
if you go
to some point, maybe years ago or months ago, I said yes to that.
I believe they just enabled it today. But if you go to advanced security options, and let me just do that and see
really
what's there.
Strange because I haven't had to enter my password in ages.
No, right, but that doesn't mean it's not there. That's what I'm saying. If you enable two-step authentication, you never need to type in a password.
Right, I love that.
But when I look at my account, what I see is I have how can I verify and sign in?
I see.
And verify here.
I see.
I have a password. You can email me a code. You can text me a code, something I should not have. You can text me a code to a second number, which I don't even have that number anymore. I should get rid of that. You can get a sign-in notification. That's through the Authenticator app. That's the default, right? But if you scroll down to additional security, there are two options now. There used to be one. The first one is two-step verification. Sorry, it's what I called two-step authorization before. Sorry. Two-step verification. That's the Microsoft Authenticator app. You turn that on. That has to be on first. And then there's passwordless accounts. And if you turn that on, your password will literally be removed from the account. Now, the caveat here is right below there. It says some apps and devices, and I would say some older apps and devices, Xbox 360, Windows Phone, don't support this system because they predate two-step verification, and they've never been updated. So if you're still playing Xbox 360, probably shouldn't do this, right? Although you can create temporary passwords.
That does kind of make me nervous. I mean, I don't use my password because I can.
Right. Yep.
But I hate to delete it.
So the good news is if you delete it and then you feel like, maybe I shouldn't have done this, you can add a password later too. Okay. You can change it.
Because there are some legacy nodes that do need passwords.
Like and depending on who you are and what you do, right. You might not want to do it. But honestly, for most people, this will make your account very secure, and this is that most secure way to sign into Windows for sure.
Yeah.
Type in your username, authenticate off the Authenticator app.
It tells you a number, and you say the same number on the Authenticator, and you're in.
Yep.
I feel like that is very secure. It isn't two-factor now, though. It's only one-factor. It's just something you have.
I guess the something I guess is your email address, but it's
that's not hard that's not hard to figure out.
No,
I guess they're also relying on the fact that most people's phones have their own authentication, so that
that's right. And that's
in order to get the phone to work, I presumably logged into it. And
on my phone, I have to use the fingerprint reader to even access this.
So then that would be two-factor.
That's another layer. The layer. I almost said layer. That's a layer.
The layer of security using Authenticator.
What is happening to me?
I love it. No, don't change.
I have not been drinking.
Too much Prince spaghetti, I think.
It's Anthony.
Anthony. Hey, Anthony.
All right,
hey, Paulie. So that's a tip and the app together at last.
That's right.
Yeah, unified. Get your Microsoft Authenticator and then go passwordless. I think that's the future. I wish we could just do this.
Absolutely.
Actually, Steve Gibson created a technology that would do this called Squirrel. Problem is that Steve Gibson did it. If Microsoft came along and said, hey, we got something for you, maybe that would work.
Well, this is a way that a big company can change the world, right? It has to come from Microsoft.
Has to. Or somebody like that, Yeah.
Right.
I feel like, though, they need to make it easier for normal people to set this up.
Yeah,
I don't think it's that easy.
Honestly, I think it's to
as
normal people.
This
would sound scary, though. It's like, wait a minute,
you
want me
no password?
I know it does sound scary.
That's the biggest problem, right?
Yep.
All right, Mary Jo, your enterprise pick of the week is next.
All right, and here he is.
Here he is.
He heard the word enterprise and he came right over.
Almost done, right?
None of that.
None of that. Enterprise pick is a word of advice if you run Linux virtual machines on Azure. You need to patch right away because there has been a vulnerability, actually a number of vulnerabilities discovered by Wiz around OMI, Object Management Infrastructure. So OMI is embedded in many popular Azure services, they said, and this is a little scary, but when customers set up a Linux virtual machine in the cloud, an OMI agent is automatically deployed by Microsoft without the customer's knowledge when they enable certain Azure services. Unless the patch is applied, attackers can easily exploit 4 vulnerabilities, which Wiz is calling, oh my God, OMIGOD.
That's hysterical.
Because that's the reaction they had when they found out Microsoft was deploying this without users' knowledge on their Linux virtual machines on Azure. Now, here's a new twist to this since the patching advice came out yesterday as part of Patch Tuesday. At the top of Wiz's post about this, they say, as of now, September 15th at 10 a.m. Eastern, The affected Azure services, which we list below, still have not been fixed, and vulnerable OMI versions are still being deployed to new VMs, even though they've talked to Microsoft about this. So Microsoft did release patches, but Wiz is saying they're not yet working the way they need to work. So if you have a Linux VM in Azure, you need to be monitoring this situation. It sounds fairly important and fairly dire.
Golly.
Yeah. A related thing to this is today, Microsoft announced that they were hiring a former... I know, my phone is ringing.
Hello, Mary Jo.
Okay.
Hello.
I'm like...
Sorry, this
Mary
is important. I
Jo,
gotta take this.
you know what day this is?
Guys.
It's Prince Spaghetti Day.
This is, who's calling? It's Charlie Bell,
Oh,
I'm sure.
the Charlie Bell, former AWS executive?
Yes, who Microsoft today acknowledged finally publicly that they've hired. And get this, get what he's going to do. He's going to head up a new division at Microsoft in engineering that oversees security, identity management, and compliance, all in a single organization in engineering. And so Microsoft's taking various people from other parts of the company and they're putting them all into this new division under Charlie Bell, which some people are saying, hey, it's time. Microsoft's having a lot of security issues and it's a good move for them to be putting somebody very senior in charge of this. The only catch here with the Charlie Bell thing is it sounds like Amazon is disputing this and maybe throwing a little shade, if not legal shade on this. So Microsoft and AWS are in negotiations and hopefully are going to reach a resolution before he actually begins his new job.
To give you an idea of how high level he is, he was probably going to replace Andy Jassy as head of AWS when Jassy became CEO. So this is a high level Amazon guy. And they, they're saying, hey, he's leaving with a lot of secrets. We're in dead competition with Microsoft. We don't like this.
Yep. But you can guess why he left. He got passed over as the CEO for AWS. So he's like, hey, what can I do? Let's go to Microsoft. Yeah, a little tit for tat there. Right. Yeah.
All right. You also have a code name for us.
Yep. So this is interesting. This is a code name that I had never heard, I don't believe, but it's a project that's been around at Microsoft for a while. The code name is Project Rocket. And Rocket is, according to Microsoft, a configurable platform for live video analytics. The reason it's come back into the news this week is Microsoft is doing a lot in Azure for telcos around 5G and trying to make Azure the best cloud for our telco providers to work with. And Project Rocket is all about making it easy for anyone with a camera to stream and use computer vision and machine learning algorithms together on that data and analyze the video data. So this is something that I'm guessing they're going to try once it comes out of research to make an Azure service and to sell it to telcos and other people who care about live streaming video analytics. There's also already a GitHub repo. I guess it's been there for a couple of years for this if you want to check it out because it's an open source project. So it's on GitHub as Microsoft Rocket Video Analytics Platform. I just thought it was interesting. I had never heard this code name, and then I'm like, oh, look at that. It's likely going to be part of the telco platform for Azure.
Rocket. Now, beer time.
Yes. So a couple weeks ago on Windows Weekly, Paul and Stephanie gave us a really interesting recipe for Stephanie's special pina colada. Well, this weekend I had a beer that was made to taste exactly like a pina colada, which was kind of interesting.
Crazy.
Yes. So it's from Grimm in Brooklyn. It's called Pina Pop Sour. It's a fruited Berliner Weiss, which is a style these days. And here's how Grimm said they brewed it. We took half a ton of toasted coconut. Oh, my God. An obscene amount of pineapple, added milk sugar, Tahitian vanilla, and finally a final dose of cashmere dry hops. So when I had this, I was like, it's so disorienting because you're expecting a beer and you taste it and you're like, it tastes like a pina colada, but it's beer. Very coconutty, very pineapple underneath. It definitely tasted like a sour beer, but because of the milk sugar, a little sweet also. It's 5%, and you know what made me pick it today is it's like 97 degrees here in New York today.
Yes.
It feels like a tropical day still, even though it's fall, and I could drink a pina colada or a pina colada beer today.
Yeah. Go out and get caught in the rain. Nice.
Exactly.
Pina Pop from Grimm. Well, this was a nice long show. I imagine it'll be long next week, too, because there's going to be lots to talk about. New Microsoft.
Oh, I don't know. We'll see.
Surfaces. We'll see. Maybe a duo. Maybe not. Paul will join me 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern next Wednesday as we stream the Microsoft event live with Paul's snarky commentary. And then following that 11 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern or 2 p.m. Eastern time, you can watch Windows Weekly. Every Wednesday, you can watch Windows Weekly at that time. That would be 1800 UTC. We do the live stream at twit.tv/live. Those people who are watching live often like to chat live at irc.twit.tv. Of course, Club Twit members also have a channel for chatting. That's the Discord server full of great conversation and lots of animated GIFs. And that is available to all, as well as an ad-free version of this and all of our shows and the Twit Plus feed. There's lots of benefits. We've got events coming up as well. We thank you so much for supporting us. $7 a month. If you want to know more about Club Twit, go to twit.tv/Club Twit. On-demand versions of the show always available for free at twit.tv/WW. There's also a YouTube channel with all the shows, the video from all the shows there. And, of course, you can always subscribe on a podcast client wherever you get your podcasts. If you do that, that's great. I mean, you'll get it automatically as soon as it's available. Leave us a review. 5-star review would be much appreciated. Help spread the word about Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott's at Thurrott.com. That's his Windows News blog with many other people. And he also writes and publishes his books. Currently, the Windows 10 Field Guide. Soon, I think, the Windows 11 Field Guide or whatever you're going to call it. I don't know. Do you know what the title is yet?
Yeah, the Windows 11 Field Guide.
Oh, well, you know, why mess with a good thing? That's at leanpub.com. Mary Jo Foley is at her ZDNet blog, all about Microsoft.com. Thank you both. Stay cool on a very hot summer afternoon, late summer afternoon. And we'll see you next week. Early in the morning with you, Paul, for me anyway. And then the both of you at the normal time on Windows Weekly. Bye-bye.
If you find yourself talking to those virtual assistants in your house quite often, or maybe you can make your light turn on and off with the touch of a button, well, Smart Tech Today is the show for you. Join Matthew Casanelli and myself, Micah Sargent, every week as we talk all about smart stuff and the fun that comes along with it.